What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the lab. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. We don't have a lot of time to waste tonight. We got two incredible guests in the house, two of my favorite people. We have Chris McDonough of The Interview Room, Dr. Gary Brucato, forensic psychologist, author of The New Evil, which you can pick up anywhere. How's it going, guys? Good to see you. You both look strapping as ever. Dr. Gary, your hair, you got a haircut.
I did indeed.
It looks great. Yeah.
Did you get the mow, the Larry, or the curly?
I think it's a combination of all
If
three.
I got the curly, I'd be bald. So it was closer to one of the others, you know. I would say it looks more like a Shemp, to be honest with you. I think I went for the Shemp. But anyway, do you know what that means, Josh, or do you don't know who Shemp is?
No, is that part of the Three Stooges?
So before Curly, before the bald stooge,
yeah,
there was a different
stooge
guy who was a Howard, like Mo,
right?
Shemp Howard. And I have to be honest with you that he was the most underratedly hilarious of the Stooges. But then he was gone, and they replaced him with Curly, with the funny voice and the bald head, and he was hilarious too. But I'm telling you, there was something about Shemp that was hysterical.
I love that's. Well, either way, I don't think you look like Shemp or Curly, but thank you for being here. How are you? I know you've been busy. Both of you.
I have been busy. Well, because in many ways I've been throughout the entire Kohberger case. I mean, Chris and I have both been people frequently commenting on it. One from a law enforcement perspective and one from a clinical psychologist, forensic psychologist perspective, giving opinions, obviously informal ones because we didn't see him personally. They're just outside opinions based on available public info. But as a consequence, we were called upon when a lot of the things that we foresaw turned out to come to pass. What happens, of course, is that everybody tries to kind of throw shade, so to speak, at our ideas. We go through these sort of bumps of people doing that. And then they come back around to realizing that Kohberger's not that complicated, and he's a lot like other offenders that have come before him. We're just a kind of garden variety inadequate pervert who, you know, got in there and committed a mass murder because everything failed. I mean, it really seems as simple as that.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with most everything that you say about Kohberger. I mean, he isn't that interesting, but the mysteriousness of the crimes, you know, people do want to know the inside details. Who was the target? You know,
of course they do. But why do they want to know that?
Well, because I guess because, you know, it's been so public, like the case itself has been so public, and people feel that they have the right to know. And
I think that's partially true.
And
I think that many of us are also unconsciously under a very narcissistic person's spell, who wants to be fascinating and wants all of us to talk about him like he's the most interesting case that ever. And I have, you know, there's a saying from the great psychoanalyst Lacan that says, never give in to the demand. In other words, you have to be conscious that a person with a certain personality is trying to get you to react, right? So a person says something provocative about you, and you say, I'm not reacting, sorry. I'll have to find something else to argue with. And they get mad, and they'll scream and yell and stomp, and you just don't react. And that's the best way to win with that kind of person. So I think sometimes he pulls for that. But at the same time, from a 30,000-foot psychological perspective, we have to understand him because we're trying to prevent future crime. It has nothing to do with thinking he's interesting. I could care less about him. To me, he's no different than a bug in a, you know, pinned down on an entomologist's table that you're just sort of examining him to understand him. But I don't want to be best friends with the bug.
Sure.
The bug. And I mean, you know what I'm saying? Chris, don't you have that attitude too? It's about victim prevention, and it's not about caring about this guy.
Yeah, I mean, and lest we forget, today's Xana's birthday. A birthday.
It is. You're right.
A birthday that her parents do not ever get.
Yeah.
She is forever the age she died at.
Frozen in
So-
time, it feels like.
This is the power that he took.
Mhm.
And it's sitting with him. So what's on the agenda there, Josh? What do you got?
We're going to
cooking?
talk a little bit about, now it's basically headed to sentencing. He's headed off to prison soon. And Holly Golightly has a great question there. Will he be put in Gen Pop? Absolutely not. He would be a lamb to the slaughter. He's going to have to watch himself anyway, even being in segregation. However, if you've read the report, that I think it was the New York Post had it, they were talking about the prison that he's going to, and I believe it's the same one as Chad Daybell, and apparently it doesn't have the best reputation, but I don't think a lot of prisons do. I mean, it's not a great place to be. Dr. Gary has alluded to it many times. It's not going to be a comfortable place. He will get used to it, but it's never going to be where he's going to, be kicking his legs back in a lawn chair, standing in the open field.
I mean, I heard someone say on Nancy Grace, I wish I knew the guy's name. And she said, is he going to get conjugal visits? And he said, no, but I can't speak for anyone he might share a jail cell with.
Yeah, he might meet a friend in prison.
Right. Just a terrible, it's a terrible image for this, because you have to remember, they are going to try to mitigate this situation because this guy has an autism diagnosis. If he really has autism, and I am not speaking to whether that is true or not, okay? But if he does, because I have not examined him, but if he does, the argument would be that the hyperstimulation, the frightening idea of being in a new place, the unpredictability, whatever, he would be better suited for some kind of treatment situation. And I have no doubt that they're going to give him some kind of psychotherapeutic intervention. I think he's going to have access to reading materials, writing materials, probably get a lot of letters. I would say there are going to be people that are going to tell him, you've been framed. I love you. I want to come see you, whatever. But, the reality is this is a deeply inadequate guy. So it'll be, I can't do anything with you because I'm in jail. Let me tell you something. If a man wants to have intercourse with somebody during a visit, believe me, it'll happen.
Yeah.
I mean, believe they have found ways to do it. People have come out of jails pregnant, and you don't know how they did it if they used a telepathy. But if someone wants to get pregnant, they're going to get pregnant. And that's the kind of guy he's not going to. I think which gets into some of what I think we're probably going to talk about, to be honest with you, about, this guy's motivations and personality and whatever. But Chris, what do you think? He's not getting Gen Pop, right?
Well, first of all, if you look at the prison system in Idaho as a whole, comparatively speaking, it's a country club. I mean, when you look at California prisons like Corcoran and, Pelican Bay and Donovan, etc. Well, first, the first clue that comes to you is when you pull up their maximum security prison. They don't call them inmates. They call them residences, a resident. So our residents so that they kind of soften, the terminology. And then when you start watching all the videos on their prison pages, it's all about, how do we make these guys comfortable and how do we make them better? How do we help them? And there's even one person that's on there. She goes, my whole goal here is to help improve the lives of our residents. That's what she said.
Residents.
Yeah. So I'm calling it the Residence Inn. The Resident Inn.
The Idaho Hilton.
Yeah. Well, Marriott. Yeah.
Marriott.
Because, and it goes to show you just this whole, it's almost like this chain of attitude, in my humble opinion, that has been prevalent in this entire case. And I should clarify a couple of things. Some folks were asking me about references to the concept of what the cost was going to be, et cetera. And so I put a post up on my Facebook, the interview room, and connected to some articles.
I don't
that-
understand, Chris. You mean people were questioning the notion that costs figured into the decision that was said publicly?
Yeah, that I know, but they want because I said it on Nancy Grace, they wanted references, and so I gave them a couple.
Oh.
And I know, Gary, you were on a show on NBC where that
Somebody
came
said
up. And
Yeah. I was on, oh Lord, why can't I remember the name of it?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. And it was the guest right before said it. But my understanding of it was that they looked at it and said, look, half of the families want this, half of the families don't.
Right.
But we have to also think of the taxpayers and the state. And it's like, it was some amount cited, like $15 million or something. Is that what you heard also?
Yeah, it could go as high as 15 million, but
And then that was
probably
reported
gonna
in the
land
Idaho
between
Statesman.
3 and 10 million.
Yeah, but it was in the Idaho Statesman.
Yeah, it was in the Idaho Statesman as well. So, but this just helps, folks who are, looking around and questioning. It's an accurate statement for everybody, so that.
But don't they always they always take that into consideration? I mean, that's what a lot of these plea deals are for, not only to secure conviction, but to also keep the heavy strain of enormous trials off of court, off of the court system. However, sometimes I think you can make an exception, but
Well, if it's always this idea that you can't mitigate a case through emotion.
correct.
And when we see the district attorneys start to cry, that's a red flag. And then you also have to step back and say, okay, well, what's the real motivation here? Because the rules are, it's really unethical to file a death penalty enhancement with the idea that you're going to somehow extract a plea, right? You can't just file this death penalty so that you can get him to say, okay, I did it, and then we save money and everybody steps back. Because the way this works is, if you're going to submit a death penalty case, there are teams of district attorneys at larger DA's offices. And in this case, I would submit to you, it's the Attorney General's office. And what they do is they weigh out the aggravating and the mitigating circumstances of the case and decide whether or not there should be a death penalty enhancement. And it goes through a very strenuous weighing process. And then once that committee decides, I mean, I've sat in a room in San Diego, there are 15 attorneys in the room. And you present your case, and then they decide whether or not they're going to bring up the pluses and the minuses. And then once they have come to, well, we think we'd like to file the death penalty, they submit it to the district attorney, the elected official. And that elected official then decides, okay, what are the cost factors? Are the families involved? i.e., are they on board? And if so, I will make a decision and then give you my decision. And that's why it takes a little time. And so I was just absolutely blown away by the fact that the families were not brought into a room. And all this comes from, of course, the 50-50 split here, right? You've got two families that want it, two families that don't, that the plea deal. But how did they receive the information? They received the information via email with an attachment. That's not how you do it. And I think that's part of the criticism, unfortunately, that the media has picked up on, and they're hammering the DA because they should have gotten all in the same room. And I've had multiple victims, families in the same room, and the DA's responsibility is say, okay, here's the pluses, here's the minuses, here's the cost benefits, here's the cost analysis. What say you? What's your opinion? And they have an opinion. It doesn't mean it's going to be the decision. It means the opinion is heard. And as a result of that, they move forward or they don't. And in this case, they move forward with half the opinion.
Yeah, well, that's what happened in my father's case, was that the district attorney and the assistant DA met with our family in a private. I wasn't there; I was little, but from what my grandfather and grandmother told me, that they sat down, they talked about it a couple of times. It was, and there was nothing. There was nothing, binding the district attorney to say, well, because the family said so, we have to do it this way. And there's no legal precedent for that, but you would think that an email wouldn't suffice when you're having that conversation about, the defendant's future. And so, I watched Steve Gonsalves on, I believe it was Ashley Banfield, and he was talking about how he was sorry that he let his daughter down, and which was just, it was heartbreaking to hear something like that. I don't see how he did. I can understand why he feels that he did, but unfortunately, the decision was really out of his hands. But the families should have been told in a much different way, I think, personally. Dr. Gary, what say you? I'm sure you know a lot about plea deals, and I'm sure that you've given your expert advice on stuff as well. Do you think it was kind of handled maybe insensitively?
I think that if Brian Kohberger himself had pulled the strings, it couldn't have been done in a more half-baked, insensitive way. Because I think it has the quality of mechanical detachment and tactlessness and considerations that are offensive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it, it's like saying, to someone, it is saying to someone, we made a calculation that in the final analysis, it's better to drop this, so save a little money. Why waste time? But because there's no understanding that the trial process has other psychological purposes. The fact is, these are people who, and I've told them so. One of the families on Chris's show, I said, this process is like, it's like operating like a hummingbird. The minute you stop flapping your wings, you die. You realize that the person's gone. So you use the process, the media, the trial, whatever, to keep moving and talking and keeping them alive and whatever. And then the idea is the trial is like a kind of exposure therapy. It gradually introduces the idea of what happened and allows the acceptance. It gives you a sense of closure. It works just like an exposure. And what this was just like kicking somebody off the cliff very rapidly. It's over. Get over it.
Right.
And that shows a lack of sensitivity and insight into the way it works. And now what you have is a bunch of people who suddenly fell on their rear ends emotionally, and no one's there to pick them up. And I'll tell you, anyone who's ever experienced loss knows that one of the first things some people do is they just keep moving. You keep moving because if you sit still, they're gone. It's like I've dealt with people who come in and, who I've had to see because they lost somebody very abruptly and they don't stop talking. And it's, if the person had insight of what they were doing, they would say, I can't stop because the minute I stop talking, they're dead. See, and I think that's what it is. The trial gives you that opportunity, and it was taken from them. See,
Yeah.
I know because I've dealt with so much loss, so many people going through loss, tragic loss. And then the other piece of it is that now there's going to be the endless looping, like you see sometimes in people in a cold case or in a, one piece of footage I kind of want you to show, Josh, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Is the footage of Denise Naslin, one of the victims of Bundy from Lake Sam. She was one of the two with Ott. Her mother relentlessly hounded Bundy to get him to confess to killing her daughter and to find out what happened to her. Was basically denied ever finding out. Bundy boasted what he did to another serial killer he was sharing a jail cell with, Schaefer. If we didn't, if he's telling the truth, we know what happened through Schaefer. But he lied all the time, so who knows? But anyway, in this little clip, she tells you, first of all, she never moved her daughter's car. Her daughter vanishes from the park. She kept the daughter's car in front of the house forever. It's like the fantasy of my daughter's going to come home and need the car, right? Never moved it. And she sits there and says that all she thinks about is going through her head. Well, you'll see it. You want me to send you the clip to play?
Which one is it? Is it the
tell me the title of it and I'll tell you if
Ted Bundy victim Denise Noslin's mother, Eleanor Rose?
That's it.
36 seconds.
No, it's not 36 minutes. It's the one
30 seconds.
It's Inside Edition, right? Wasn't it Inside Edition?
Yeah, there's somebody there. Hold on. Let me share.
Oh, yeah. I just want you to see, to get a little taste. No, I think it's the one that's 1 minute and 45 seconds long.
Okay.
Yes, that's it. I'm going to send it to you.
Yeah.
I just want you to show it because it gives you an idea of what these people are probably thinking. Here, I hope I picked the right one, but go ahead, try that. Of all the Bundy victim parents, I've always been the most drawn to Denise Naslin's mother. That poor, sensitive woman. And then on top of it, all she had in the whole world was her daughter. She had this lovely, daughter who was so kind, so sweet, so proud. And then she died of cancer. She lost her daughter like that, and then she died of cancer. It's horrible. And Bundy couldn't give a flying leap. Yeah. According to Schaefer, he took Denise and another woman down a road and decapitated both of them after assault and ligature or strangulation, and then returned to the scene to have relations with the remains. The mother never heard that, I don't believe. But if you
some other things that nobody wants to know about,
and other things nobody wants to know, which I'm going to omit. Go ahead.
Denise Naslin was one of the two women abducted from the lake. This is Denise's mother.
All I can think about is what he did to her. What were her thoughts? How long did she suffer? And those thoughts are with me all the time. She left for the picnic with her friends.
There's a car.
About 9 o'clock that night, I saw that her boyfriend came up pulling in her car. And I knew right then there was something wrong. And he said, I can't find Denise. He said the picnic was over with for a couple of hours and he had been looking all over for her and couldn't find her. I knew that Denise just would not disappear like that for any reason at all.
Are you convinced that the case is solved now? Do you know who killed her?
I feel I do.
Are you satisfied?
In one way, I'm satisfied, but another way, I tell myself and pray that he would confess. I feel that my life has been completely destroyed.
Do you have any feelings for Bundy's parents?
Well, I feel sorry for them in a way, and then in another way, I feel that they should have seen something in his eyes or something somewhere about him to give them a clue that something was wrong.
Denise,
Now, let's just, yeah. So now you see how in that little snippet, you have a microcosm of what these families must be feeling. You saw everything. You could write a dissertation on that, because the arc is, if you break it down, it's the, I want to know for closure, but I can't accept it. And I need to make a project out of this to get to the bottom of this. But now that I have an answer, my life is completely destroyed. And there's nothing to do but sit here and have feelings about it. And I don't know if I'm mad or sad or confused or empty or destroyed. And you see she's leaning on her faith. You see from the way she talks that she's not well. You could see the depression reeking out of that poor woman. Chris, this is a very powerful clip, isn't it?
It's beyond powerful, and you know that's why I think we're always advocates for the victim, because it's already started. I mean, there's going to be books, there's going to be movies. They're going to be comparing this guy to different personalities. I mean, it's already started. And what we
That's
have
an
now,
important thing to do professionally,
absolutely,
right? But not for titillation. It's
right. I mean,
prevent
it's
it from ever happening again.
there's going to be 1,000 YouTube videos. People that have never sat with these guys, sat with those victims, and they're all going to opine as to their right. And all that does is re-victimize the victim, because there's no closure. Because and I know, Gary and Josh, you understand that Brian has not said what he did. He said, "Yeah, I did it," but he didn't say anything else. And that's locked right up here now, right now. Click. And the victims' families are all going to one day wake up. Right now, you have two of them saying, "Yeah, it's a good deal. Make it happen." But then you have the other two saying, "Well, wait a minute. What deal? How did it get here? I want to know." Because events like this, like Xana's birthday, and by the way, I understand, I've lost 21 birthdays so far. And there's no comprehension of what that means. I mean,
Right.
just the other day when this story broke, June 30th, that was my son's birthday.
Yeah.
He's forever 20 years old. Now, the blessing that I have is I know how he passed in an accident. Okay. I have that closure internally. God was good to me. These families don't. They're going to have to read the books and go, what? They're going to have to see the movies. I mean, it's already on, we got a movie on the TV coming up here in the end of July. And everybody's going to watch it. I'll watch it. I mean, being honest.
Sure.
But at the same time, there's this whole idea that there isn't closure. And that's a great clip to show, Gary. That was a great way to tie this together. It really is.
And you don't think that Kohberger in his obsessive study of Bundy ever saw that?
Oh, I know, right?
Nobody who studies Bundy doesn't know about Denise Naslin's mother running over.
Exactly.
And he probably looked at it and thought, wow, what power.
Yeah, and tomorrow, lab rats, Dr. Brucato and myself are going to do something really important. We're going to do a comparative analysis on multiple personalities, including Elliot Rodger, who he was also studying. And there's others.
Suppose
Well,
some people think.
There's Roland, there's Son of Sam, there's Bundy, but right, Gary? I mean, but
People
who?
that some people have speculated he was interested in. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
For different
I mean,
reasons.
but we're going to tie it all together tomorrow, and so hopefully you can join us there.
Yeah, and you want to give a little preview of that and talk about it a little bit, or?
I personally think that it would be better not to be honest with you, because I think that because Chris has prepared some interesting stuff for the presentation, I think it would be good to let them tune in and see what Chris is. Because I said to Chris, I don't want to prepare anything. I want it to be totally spontaneous.
Right.
So I don't even want to hear what he has. You know what I mean? I want to. Yeah. So it's gonna be but I think we should re-show that clip, Chris, because I think it's very powerful, and I have more of them. But what I do think we could say is that it is interesting that the Kohberger world, because exactly as I feared, because they didn't give a sense of why he did this, is now dividing up into people that are desperate to have an answer, because it's made him into an intriguing figure who, now you have to wonder about. And of course, people are just filling in the gaps. And I'm worried that people are going to go after the families and other people who knew him to desperately try to get these answers. And, if you have an answer, or you think you do, you could sell millions of dollars in books or movie rights or whatever, because everybody's so interested now, And again, you couldn't have done a better job if you tried, right, to get attention. And I think that the camps that are dividing up are he was a liar and a pervert who masqueraded very well, who was able to slip past, even a professor with expertise in psychopathy and serial killing and everything else, mass murder, spree killing, and all that. Or he was some kind of pathetic incel kind of figure who was ultimately inadequate. And it's interesting because in the New Evil, he would be a very different category if he was authentically just an inadequate guy, kind of like you see in some people with severe mental illness or things like that. But I lean in the direction of thinking that, without getting into too much detail, towards that there's like what he wanted to be and what he was, and we'll get into that. But I think in the final analysis, there was a division in him, and that to get it right, you have to say it isn't mutually exclusive. There's the type you want to be. I mean, listen, there's a lot of people in this world I would love to be like. And then there are the people I am like. There's a huge difference. You know what I'm saying? And it's just the way that it is.
Like Dom DeLuise.
I don't strive to be Dom DeLuise. No.
I mean, said like Dom DeLuise.
Oh, I thought you were saying Dom DeLuise is who I strive to be. Although he was a fantastic cook and very funny.
I didn't know that, actually.
What we could do, if you want, Josh, is so we know where he's going, right? He's going to the max.
Oh yeah.
In Idaho, they call them, they don't call them inmates. Anybody can go to the website and look at it. It's right there. Okay, they call them residents. Go figure. So that gives you a flavor of what kind of facility he's going into. It, no matter how people describe it. It's not how people describe it. It's how the prison describes itself. That's how you know if it's a serious situation. And right now there is not a whole bunch. My neighbor's walking by, waving at me. There's not a whole bunch of information other than what we know.
Isn't he going where Vallow is?
Well, yeah, he's in a special, death row. He's not going with Lori. He's with Chad. Yeah, Chad.
Yeah, with Chad is. Yeah. Is that the same
but
person?
Chad's going to be in a separate area. Chad's on death row. Brian's not going on death row.
But it's
He'll
the
go into
same
protective
facility,
custody.
isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it the same
Same
facility?
facility, 2 different mods.
That is one facility I wouldn't want to go to. He's going to stick out in that facility badly.
Well, that's where they're going to stick him. They're going to put him in with all the registered RSOs and child people and et cetera. So he'll have
That's
good
pretty
company.
bad. That is pretty bad, I have to tell you. And a lot of, isn't there also a lot of gang members there?
Yeah, but he won't be in general population. He won't be around those guys. I'll put money on it.
Unless he's in like group therapy or something.
Well, even then, right? I mean, you know, Dr. Simon, Larry Simon. Larry used to, he was funny when he would present. He did all of the group therapy like you, Gary, at a Tuscadero in Cal, right? I mean,
With all
you,
those colonies that
you
protect
get
them.
them all sterile and make them try to get some feeling about, you know, what it's like to feel like the victim, and they, you know, more than anybody.
John Douglas told the story in one of his books. I want to say it was an obsession, but I'm not sure. Told a story about a woman who was running group therapy in a jail, I think, and the offender, you know, who was like a sweet talker, you know, BS artist, whatever. In those days, the telephone had the curly cord on it, you know. So she goes into a little room. He manages to inveigle himself in. He strangles her with the cord, stabs her, and has relations with the stab that he made in her body. I believe in the lung or something like that. And, you know, this was the group therapy. You see what I'm saying? So, like, you know, you gotta, I think the point is when you're dealing with certain people, don't try to project onto them in a Pollyannish way that they've had their eyes open and suddenly they're singing Kumbaya. You're talking about a pool of psychopaths. It would be like dipping your toes into a piranha tank. You're talking about people that are totally transactional, that have been through the ringer and couldn't care less about you. Therapy with some people, with psychopathic people, is basically teaching them, like Tony Soprano, how to pretend they have feelings.
Yeah.
You're teaching them how to fake it. It's
Right.
awful. Now, I don't know about him. I mean, I think he may need some kind of, you know, because there is something going on with him. As I said from the beginning, before I even knew who he was, I said, this is some kind of inadequate, you know, mechanical, detached person. Because when you commit a mass murder with something other than a gun, the chances in my own work are statistically way higher that you have some serious psychological problem, right? That you may really be disturbed. And he did. I mean, obviously he did. But I guess what I want to emphasize is, like, don't have any fantasies that this is going to be in like a kumbaya group with like a bunch. I mean, you're talking about a situation, Chris, where I really am afraid. How do I say? I don't want to say afraid, but I am concerned that he may not even survive prison.
They're going to beat the crap out of him with bars of soap in socks.
I really don't think, Chris, he would survive. I really think
We'll call it public relations is what they'll call it. Pound and release, PR. That's what's going to happen. I mean, this guy, we talked about this. I talked about this on my program a couple weeks ago. You know, he's right now, you know, Puff Daddy. He's going in there with, you know, hey, I killed 4 people. I admitted it. And they're going, so who's this squirrel coming in? And, you know, and the guards are going, holy crap, where are we going to put him? The prison, the state is going, where do we put this guy?
Yeah.
How are we going to do this? Because right now he's still sitting in county, you know, having his vegan meals until sentencing.
Well, I talked to an offender once who told me that he was fantasizing about brutalizing another offender. It didn't happen, but he was fantasizing about it. And I asked him why, and he said that offender had killed a young woman. And he said, and I have a sister.
Well,
Could have
yeah,
been my
let me
sister.
give you.
See what I'm saying?
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let me give you a paradigm shift from an investigative analysis aspect. What becomes the street? when you're locked up? Who becomes your victim set? Other inmates. The street becomes the hallways of those pods.
Right.
That becomes the street. If you want to see something, one of the most brutal attacks I've ever seen was in Utah. Where they had this guy, and they put him in the pod, and it was a white supremacist Aryan Brotherhood guy, AB guy, that needed some cred, and they're going to go down in there, and they cut this guy loose in there, and he just happened to have a shank, and he went to town. I think they pulled him off after like 100 and something stab wounds.
Sounds about right.
But you know, that's where Brian's going. He's going into a system with other lifers that will never get out. And so what is their street? Who are their new victims?
That's a good way to put it, Chris. I like that way of thinking about it. It's a good lot. Yeah. It's a good illustration.
It's not my first rodeo. You know, I mean,
I think it's a smart way to teach it.
I put hundreds of people, if not thousands, in there in prison, you know, and so I get it. And I used to go visit them for interviews. And anyway, long story short, that's where he's going. Now, the advantage that he has, it's in Idaho. But the disadvantage he has in Idaho is a very strong Aryan Brotherhood game.
Oh, great.
Right. And pull up a couple of pictures of AB members, Josh. And because he's not going to, you know, the Hispanic gangs, they're going to step up and go, no, he's not one of us. And you know, that's going to be the Mexican mafia, you know, and there's a northern and there's a southern, and then there's BGA, which is a black guerrilla family. Those guys are going to go, we don't want him. Okay. And so the only thing that's going to be left are the RSOs, the SA offenders, and the AB members. And he's going to be trading, you know, packets of noodles for, you know, favors.
Yeah, but how's he going to do that if he's by himself?
There you go. See the swastikas on him?
Yeah, it looks nice.
The SS bolts.
I've seen better heads on boils.
That's only one guy. Do you have others? Yeah, heads like these are the kind of guys that he's going to. And by the way, Idaho has a very heavy population of militia.
I'm here to take your daughter out. You know, Chris, doesn't he look like you'd like him to knock at the door and say he's here to take your daughter out?
Yeah, type in Idaho Aryan Brotherhood, Josh. See what we come in.
Chris, look at that guy. Wait, put that guy back on the screen for just 1 second. Holy crap! Not even a place left on his body to tattoo.
Oh, that's minor. That's minor. I was with a guy. I was in the cell with a guy 2 weeks ago that had SS on both eyes, underneath, teardrops across the forehead. He looked just like, you know, right out of Central Casting.
Remember Groucho Marx had that song Lydia the Tattooed Lady? Because she was so covered with images, and it said when her muscles start relaxing,
look at these home fries here.
Yeah.
Wow, look at those mustaches. They look like something out of like
well, these are
70s adult movies or something.
Yeah, the pea stashes, right? But I mean, look at home fries here. Everybody's crisp, but yeah, no, these are the kind of guys that are saying, "Hey, Brian, when you getting here?"
Yeah, they're waiting for him.
Yeah. What time's this? Hey, Holmes. Yeah, what's up, homie? He said, "Hey, what time's this guy get here, man?" Oh, he'll be in tomorrow. Okay, what time? Oh, his bus shows up at 7:30. Oh, thanks. you know, and they'll pass it up the line. They'll fish it. You know what fishing is in the
Yeah,
joint?
like when they take the little pieces of paper to fishing line and they throw it like to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, and they throw it underneath the cell door to the cellie next to him. And they're you know, so his cellie is, you know, waiting for him. They've already assigned him somewhere.
Wouldn't it be funny if it turned out, Josh, that what you accidentally pulled up was a picture of the prison chaplains?
Yeah.
Those are the chaplains.
Yeah.
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 Right.
Imagine going to prison and your only two choices are to join the SO, the Aryan Brotherhood. You're like, that's it. Those are the only two choices I have. Yeah, pretty much.
They all look like some variation on Cheech Marin from Cheech and Chong. It looks kind of like Cheech basically fathered, you know,
You
seven
know what
kids.
it's about, Gary? As it's about respect. It's 100% respect. You know what? I don't have issues with these kind of guys. I have issues with what they do.
Of
Okay?
course,
Look at
actually, the funny thing is that when you get
Look
in
at the
there,
guy with the hell. Look at that. Look at the head right there. That guy.
Wait, let me see that. Wait, I gotta see this. Hold on a minute.
Look at
Boy,
this guy.
I gotta put that on my Pinterest. Wait,
There's
hold on.
AB.
Wait, hold on a
Right
minute.
there.
What is that on his head? Is it some kind of beast?
Looks like a lion.
I think it looks
lion.
like
It looks
A
Zool.
tiger.
I think it looks like a bird in a bird bath.
All right, this is like
Well, I
becoming
don't
like
know.
an ink blot test.
The one thing you never do is try to interpret it, because that's disrespectful. So what you do is you ask him to say, "Hey, Holmes, I like your artwork." He says, "Thanks." So what's the story? And that's where you leave it. If he wants to tell you, he'll tell you. If he doesn't, don't pry, because that shows weakness, that you don't understand the rules, especially when you're locked up. Because remember, these guys are
Scary.
watching how the keys come out and go into the door. They're watching where that guard puts that key, because they're locked up for 23 of 24 hours. They have nothing else to do but to observe. And the only thing you don't want to do is take that and try to look at that guy and try to pretend that you know, because you don't know.
Dear Lord.
You don't know. Look at this guy here. You know, 111. So A is the number, letter A is the B, or A is 1. And
Yeah.
what's the 11th number alphabet? A, B, what's the 11th?
K.
Huh?
K.
A is 1.
A is 1
Well,
and K is
what's-
11.
No, what's the 11th
Are you
letter
decoding
in the
this,
alphabet?
Chris?
What's the 11th letter in the alphabet?
K.
Okay. AK. There you go.
Nice.
That could be his moniker. AK. Now, what's AK?
It's a gun.
AK-47, maybe? I don't know. That's
be his
why you
nickname.
ask him. That's why you ask Home Fries here. You say,
What's
hey,
the zero? Was that what is that?
there's a story here.
A Rolling
Every
Stone song?
tattoo is a story. It's a message.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been around these
AK-47.
guys before, Dr. Gary.
What did you say,
Yeah.
Chris, Josh?
I said he's been around these guys a couple times.
A couple weekends. And so you never want to ever come out and say, hey, oh, I know what that stands for. No, we don't. Okay. We got a general idea. What's the ones to the side? Can you pull him up? Does he have any more side shots, Josh? And what's on his chest?
Let's see. No, but apparently he escaped in 2024, so that's nice.
Can you imagine him knocking on your door saying, can I borrow a blanket?
Yeah.
Were you just with Brian
Can I borrow a
Kohberger?
cup of sugar? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any more.
What's on his chin? Is that a
I thought it was
looks
a
like
Rolling Stone tongue, but it's a 0, I think.
What is it, Josh?
I think it's looks like a tongue or a 0. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to zoom in.
I can't go. Yeah, I don't think I can go anymore. I'll try. Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, AB members are there's some tough dudes, man. You don't want to disrespect them at all, ever. And
So
that's the
horrifying.
this is the world he's going to be swimming in, is what you're saying.
this is exactly where he's going, and he doesn't understand it. You see,
All right, I zoomed in so much I can't find it. Okay.
well,
Oh,
yeah, I think we all get the right idea, right? And so when you take this, if he's had these personas and stuff, and let's, Josh, if it's all right, I prepared a little thing about
Oh.
Papa Rodgers. Would you guys be okay if we covered that?
Me,
Yeah.
of course.
yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I
you
didn't
want to?
know if Chris wanted to save that for his.
No, we
So-
can throw it up because it will tie into where we're going to go tomorrow. Hey, lab rats, are you guys okay if we kind of do an investigative analysis in relationship to Papa Rodgers and that
People,
persona?
they're interested if I spend 45 minutes talking to Josh about some story he wrote about camels and the baby Jesus. They'll be very interested in this. You remember, Josh, when you told that ridiculous story and I had to keep a straight face about the baby Jesus and the camel talking? And the people in the audience lapped it up like if they could, they would turn it into a pilot and send it to a major network or something. They're fascinated. So believe me, they want to hear about it. By the way, you need to publish that story.
I don't remember that. So that skipped my mind. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm sure. Don't you remember when I tried desperately to give it a theological interpretation? And even I had to give up?
Very vaguely.
Okay. Later, I'll hit you over the head and remind you.
I remember.
Papa Rodgers. Look at his hairdo there. He looks different. He got rid of those bushy eyebrows, didn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah, they shave those puppies off. But
Clean
just
up,
picture him with a 1 and 11
Look at his ears.
on his face in a couple of years.
He looks like he
I didn't realize he had such large, pronounced ears.
could glide off the cliff like nothing.
Like he could pick up Radio Free Europe or something. I didn't realize his ears are that large. Did you guys realize that? He had those protruding, like when his hair is cut short, he's really got those really wide. It's just interesting to me how
He looks like one of the things out of the Wizard of Oz that you described recently.
monkey. Well, no, I just think he looks dead in the soul. I mean, yeah, his eyes, he looks so dead, scary in the soul.
His eye, like for some reason, and I think obviously it's because of what he's now convicted of, admitted to. But you look at him in a much different, like if you were to see him on the street, you probably wouldn't be too creeped out by him. But now that you know, maybe you would, I don't know. But now that you know, like,
how did Dr. Ramsland describe him? Intense?
Yeah. You know what he's thinking?
He is intense looking.
He's probably thinking, do you think the Aryan Brotherhood would let me have a vegan meal?
I think he looks really honest to God, like his mind is in a constant state of obsessional examination of everything. Like those people that they can't blink or they're going to miss a detail.
yeah, it's like that. What did he call it? That visual snow?
Doesn't have the eye contact of an autistic. It's too fixed on you. Doesn't have the evasion that you see because in an autistic, the idea is the eye movement moves. I mean, there are some exceptions, of course. I have seen fixed gaze, but not. I mean, usually it's moving because the person's feeling overwhelmed on a sensory level.
Yeah.
So they roll the eyes away. But this is fixed, like you would see. This is what, in a derogatory way, I've heard people call Manson lamps, which are those eyes that stare at you, and almost give you that otherworldly kind of creepy feeling, like a person's going to pounce on you, like a tiger or something.
That's what Tony Soprano said to Richie Aprile in The Sopranos. Said, "Don't look at me with those Manson lamps."
Yeah, you understand what the phrase means. You remember how Manson did it intentionally. Manson had studied how to influence people and so forth. And he spent a lot of time Pelican Bay, I think it was, studying that, reading Carnegie and people like that. And he learned that if you keep your eyes open like that, it gives you like a Christ-like look, like you're like a religious icon that is glaring. I told you when they made the movie Jesus of Nazareth, the miniseries with like every famous person in it, where Robert Powell played Christ. Robert Powell used that trick. He kept his eyes open all the time without blinking to give the feeling of being otherworldly, and it does work. If you're a cult leader, you would do that. You would stare at a person and never blink like that. Because on some unconscious level, we think of it as being kind of in control or hypnotic or so forth. And he feels that way to me, that gaze, like you could get sucked into the lamps, like Deadlights and It. You get pulled into the tractor. You know what I'm saying? He has that. There's something very hypnotic about him. And that way he speaks.
That tie looks like it came off of his grandmother's couch material. So let's go on from here.
Chris, you find his stare off-putting, right?
Yeah, his facing him, his right eye drifts towards his nose, and his left eye just looks like it's stationary. And so those are dead eyes. There's nothing in there. The lights aren't on. There's nobody home. He knows what he did, and he knows how he's done it. Here's his dilemma now. He's going to have to start staring into the mirror to make himself look a little more intimidating. Because if you take home fries there with number 111 on his face and, the tattoos on his forehead, when this kid comes walking in, they're going to go, thank you. Yeah. There is a devil. Thank you.
But he also has an uncontrollable mouth. He has a temper and he cannot be. Now, granted,
you can see that for sure.
He's not going to be surrounded by females who seem to activate him in a special way, but because he thinks so little of them, right? My sense about Kohberger is he thinks women either have, the beautiful birthing hips, kind of thing, should basically be mom figures, or they are absolutely,
that would be the first comment from the intake, dude, when anyway, I better not say it.
But Chris, I think that he sees women that way. And the reality is that females activate him. He gets agitated a bit because did you see him with that female cop?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I mean, he becomes an incredible a control master, and he has to condescend, and there are a lot more examples of that. The more we hear about the story, and I just kind of think that Chris, I think to a certain extent you saw it with Ann Taylor too.
Absolutely. And she had a big smile on her face after it was all over. Did you see her reach out and touch him?
She was very proud of herself.
Well, and it's like, okay, we're done. You're gonna now go to the dungeon. This guy has no idea what's coming. None. And you know what? Too bad. So let's talk a little bit about the background on Papa Rodgers, right? I've just put a little thing together here real fast for Josh. Beautiful. And the lab rats. Up in the upper right-hand corner is some of the comments that Papa Rodgers was making. And so
this is on Reddit. This is Reddit?
Yeah, on Reddit and a variety of other places, right? Mostly Reddit, 4chan. I went and I clipped a bunch of stuff. I have hundreds of these things. I've had them for quite some time. But I wanted to give one of the things, guys and gals, that we always do, and this will also, so I don't have to repeat it tomorrow. One of the things that, we're trained in is criminal behavior analysis, which it's CIA, it's criminal investigative analysis, or CBA, criminal behavior analysis. Either way, there's a variety of different terminology for it. So I was trained in this in 1990. That's when I was first exposed to this technique. And what the idea is you want to break it down into, readable kind of concepts. Okay. And, some of the some of the things that, thank goodness today there's AI, and so you can get a lot of information quickly instead of having us to assemble it a lot of times through what we used to call, individual bullet points. So what I have done is I did a lot of searches, and then I clipped those searches and confirmed the information, and then I put this PowerPoint together. So the first question you always want to ask is, who is Papa Rodger? And here's the information that I've assembled. Papa Rodgers was a Facebook user active in the University of Idaho murder case discussion group, posted detailed and seemingly prescient comments about the November 13, 22 murders of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. The account post included specific details such as the presence of a knife sheath at the crime scene before this information was publicly released to authorities or by authorities. Key post. So I cut some key posts. November 30th, 2022, Papa Rodgers posted that the murder weapon was a large fixed blade knife and suggested police had found a sheath, which was later confirmed in the probable cause affidavit. Other posts speculated on the killer's entry point, sliding glass door, the time frame 15 to 16 minutes, close to the affidavit's 404 to 420 estimate, and the condition of the knife. Dulling explained he explained the wound differences because the knife started to dull. Remember that part where he threw that out there?
Right, but just to be clear, Chris, this person who, granted, if it was Kohberger, he would also be motivated to slightly throw off the narrative, because as I said when I profiled him on your show, that this type with a less overtly sexual motivation asserts domination control, often through the manipulation of the press or the police narrative. And but he said that Kaylee was last, her wounds were the worst, and that because the knife had dulled. But we know that that's not true. Ethan was last.
Well, and that's where he says here the account also debated theories, such as disseminating the idea that Kaylee was the primary target. And so now we go into account activity. I just put a bullet point there. Papa Rodgers was active November to December 22, but went silent after Kohberger's arrest December 30th, 2022. The account was removed from a Facebook group at 7:10 p.m. the evening before the arrest and briefly activated in the summer of 2023, posting about a fishing trip, which reignited speculation. So the account came back. Okay. And so then the second question we need to ask here is evidence supporting Kohberger as Papa Rodgers. Let's look at it in both ways. The next one's going to be evidence against it. Okay. Josh, what do you think so far? Any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I've always been curious about it, but like 4chan and Reddit, I mean, 4chan especially is a terrifying place to find yourself on the internet. But it's
so true.
And it's the kind of place that people like Brian Kohberger hang out and talk about their hate for, because it's anything goes, everything's anonymous on there, right? So you can hide your identity, but none of this would surprise me. None of it.
Okay. Dr. Gary, anything so far? Because we've got we got like 8 slides to get through.
I have a great deal to say about it, but I'm going to wait until.
Okay, perfect. So the next thing we want to look at, being objective, is let's look at evidence supporting him, or supporting that Kohberger could have been Papa Rodgers. So the first one, obviously, is accurate predictions. Papa Rodgers posted about the knife sheath, crime timetable, time frame, and entry points were strikingly accurate. Due to what appeared to be around inside of the house knowledge as the alleged perpetrator. However, this may also be weighed into his criminology background. His academic focus on criminology and his prior Reddit posts asking criminals about their emotions during crimes suggest a fascination with criminal behavior. potentially motivating him to engage in online discussions about the murders. The third, connection to a Elliot Rodger. Some speculated that Papa Rodger handle referenced Elliot Rodger, the 2014 Isle Vista killer, whom Kohberger allegedly admired. Now, this is only what Papa Rodger said. Okay. A forensic expert suggests, like Rodger, may have identified as an incel and chose the name as a nod to him with Papa, implying a mentor-like role. However, additionally, another Reddit user theorized Papa could stand for PA, Pennsylvania, Kohberger's home state, and PPA, planning, preparation, assessment, reflecting his calculated approach. Now, this is interesting. From a criminal behavior analysis aspect, this could be an analyst projecting this Papa Rodger's persona. Social media behavior. Kohberger's alleged use of Reddit account Inside Looking, which also made accurate predictions about the murders, a white Hyundai shoe print, supports the idea that he was active online discussions under pseudonyms. Some believe the similarity in posting style and knowledge between Papa Rodger's and Inside Looking indicate they could be the same person, potentially Kohberger. Timing of silence. The Papa Rodger's account went suddenly inactive after Kohberger's arrest, citing as suspicious, suggesting the account holder was aware of or affected by the arrest. This was a suggestion. Profile image speculation. Some sleuths noted that Papa Rodger's profile picture, an AI-generated image of a man in a military uniform, possibly Russian, resembled Kohberger, though this is subjective and unconfirmed. Thoughts on that one real fast before we get to the evidence against?
The side profile certainly looks like him. Like I said, a lot of these guys, including Elliot Rodgers, were on 4chan. And I can see the connection in the two, if what people are saying about Kohberger is correct. Elliot Rodgers was very upset that he was this intellectually rich kid. He hated being I can't remember if he was very upset that he wasn't white fully. You know, his dad was white and his mom was, I can't remember, I believe she was Asian, but he was very upset about things like that. He was upset that the pretty girls didn't like him. And like I said, it would not surprise me at all.
Well, we're going to get into that tomorrow, so hold your breath. Okay, for sure. So, number one, no official confirmation. There are TV shows, there are rumors of this next night in Idaho or whatever that they've confirmed it's Papa Rodger's is Kohberger. Okay, it could be, but at this point, we don't know that other than Hollywood is saying that. And Hollywood has said a lot of things, and they've been in left field in a lot of cases. Just go watch the interrogation of Michael Crow. I rest my case. So no official confirmation. Police have not linked the Papa Rodger's or Inside Looking accounts to Kohberger. Despite extensive investigation into his digital footprint, including phone data and social media activity, the lack of confirmation undermines the theory. Account reactivation. This is, I think, one of the most interesting thing, is the Papa Rodger's account reactivated in the summer of 2023. Posting about a fishing trip, which some argue is inconsistent with Kohberger's incarceration. This led to speculation the account belongs to someone else, i.e. it could be a puppet account, such as, I put him in there. I love JLR. A former, blah, blah, blah. Additionally, an ex post on January 2nd, 2025, claim Papa Rodgers was a man in Florida, not Kohberger, though this is unverified. Alternate explanations. Some argue Papa Rodgers' accurate predictions could stem from logic deduction or access to inside information, i.e., a law enforcement connection, rather than being the killer. Others in the same discussion groups make similar predictions about a sheath, suggesting it wasn't unique knowledge. Copycat accounts. Multiple Papa.
Chris, can I just say something quickly?
Please.
Did you know that when Roger was triggered? I remember this very distinctly. It was two things. One, that he had lost a childhood friend was one of the big triggers for him. The other was being rejected by a woman. Do you know what her name was? Maddie.
Okay.
Is that interesting?
I think it's interesting. Yeah, of course.
So I don't know how many people in the audience remember that, but her name was Maddie. It is quite fascinating that if there was an homage, there were certainly Bundy-ish homages in a lot of things that, I mean, for example, one of the things I pointed out was that the day that Kohberger's execution was basically taken off the table for the sorority house style, slaughter, was the anniversary, the 39th anniversary of when Bundy had his execution taken off the table for the Chi Omega House murders. I mean, it was like orchestrated, by the gods or something. It was like a weird coincidence. Right. What'd you say?
Elliot Rodgers went to a frat house.
Slightly different, but there are elements
different. But I mean, that was what he was doing.
Right, but it is interesting, and I noticed that Vicky Ward, who is the co-author with James Patterson, book that's coming out on the 14th, has pointed out, and the New York Post has reminded everyone that Maddie was the name of or at least the author of the article did. That Maddie was the name of the woman that rejected Elliot Rodger and kind of, and then he felt pushed over the edge. I don't like a victim blaming kind of quality, she rejected him, so he, that's not the point, but that's how he saw it in his mind. And I just think that is important to have in mind when you're thinking about, because there are all these connections people are going to try to make, like to try to exaggerate the link and whatever. But let's just say, Chris, as you're proceeding with this, it wouldn't be shocking if this guy was walking around resenting his difficulties getting a date. But there is no comparison between Kohberger, who had opportunities but just chose to be weird and unpleasant with women or rejected them, and Elliot Rodger, who couldn't get a date, in a house of ill repute. I mean, the thing with Elliot Rodger is that nobody wanted him. He was so angry all the time. I mean, remember when he threw somebody off the balcony at the party? I mean, that's how he didn't even bother to hide it. I mean, he was seething and furious. And Kohberger went on a date, told the woman that he wanted to tickle her, so she puts herself in the bathroom to get away from him. He has the Korean woman interested in him at school. He has no interest in her whatsoever. In other words, there are people interested. He's just weird. That's not an incel.
Well, and we're going to break that down tomorrow in depth, right. And that's why everybody needs to, tell your friends.
And it's on the. It's already listed on the interview room. So if you go, hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss it tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I think that we're going to, well, first of all, this idea that is, what we're approaching here tonight, is it possible that Papa Rodgers is Kohberger? That's the question.
Possible.
Okay?
Why not?
On the table right now. So what I'm trying to do here is approach this objectively from both sides of the coin of what social media was saying, what the courts have not said, and what the potential is. Okay, so the next thing is copycat accounts. Accounts with similar profile pictures exist on Facebook, raising the possibility of copycats and or impersonators, which complicate identifying the original account holder. Speculation and narrative. This theory relies heavily on circumstantial evidence and online speculation, which is a lot of what's going on here. Okay. There's a lot of that. I mean, there are some folks that punched out on X that something was true, and ever since that text, it has become true. But that may not necessarily be the case. As of July this month, and I did this yesterday, the pro-Kohberger theory, some users assert Kohberger was Papa Rodger, citing his criminology background and the account silent post-arrest. One post speculates he was also active on 4chan, referencing a redacted post from Pennsylvania mentioning the murders. Skeptics' views. Others reject this theory, claiming Papa Rodgers was a Florida man or an unrelated sleuth, and argued that if Kohberger was involved, authorities would have shut down the account during the investigation. That's a solid point. Context of plea. Post mentioning Kohberger's supposed guilty plea, and the reason I say this is because it's not over. The sentencing has not occurred. Until that time, even though he signed anything, anything is, I'm just going to flip a coin, could say something could happen. 90% no, 10% possibility. Suggests that Papa Rodger's question still remains unsolved, with users hoping a plea might clarify his online activity. Well, we know that's not the case. He's not going to tell us until somebody like Dr. Gary sits down with him in prison and he turns and says, I'm Papa Rodgers. Okay. Or can you believe they thought I was Papa Rodgers? Because that's going to be one of the first questions the Aryan Brotherhood's going to ask. Hey, dude, are you Papa Rodgers? Okay. So the Papa Rodger theory is tied to speculation that Kohberger was inspired by Elliot Rodger, the incel identified as the Isle Vista killer. A May 2025 article suggested Kohberger admired Rodger, with the Papa Rodger handle potentially referencing him and claiming Kohberger targeted gorgeous victims out of an incel-like resentment. However, this is speculation, and Kohberger's motives remain unclear, and no confirmed incel ideology has been shown. And here are some of his posts. Papa Rodger. It matters if you are creating a profile of a very violent killer. Thoughts on body placement. I feel like the white car isn't relevant. Do you? Papa Rodgers, did you know this because you were there, Brian? It is suggested from a listener. I feel like blood ran down a few places, but it has been suppressed. The kitchen was dripping blood, but they won't admit it. Now, that's not true, because we know everybody was killed in their beds and or in the hallway in their bedrooms. There is no crime scene in the kitchen that has been revealed. I feel like the white car isn't relevant. I'm slow. What's a red herring? Papa Rodgers. Smells like dead fish. Papa Rodgers. Kaylee came back for the night, but had recently lived there. Wrapped up by tying to have half the nation look for a white sedan. It could be interpreted that he's complaining nobody's paying attention to him. I have friends and relatives who carry them on their persons 24/7, and he's referencing a knife. We don't know if it was actually after 4 people. Ethan didn't live there, so So there could be a variable. Beat it, Dumbo. You shouldn't let your emotions control you. So while the Papa Rodgers accounts have accurate predictions and timing raises intriguing questions, there is no definitive evidence linking it to Brian Kohberger. The theory is fueled by criminology background, the account silent after his arrest, and speculation connecting to Elliot Rodger. But counter arguments such as the account's reactivation, lack of police confirmation weaken this case. Many have driven the speculation, but without official cooperation, it remains unproven. The ongoing nature of Kohberger's case limits further clarity, but responsible engagement with such theories is crucial to avoid misinformation. When he is incarcerated, he will dictate the narrative about Papa. Now, there have been some that have said that you can take it out now, Josh. That have said, well, there's confirmation from this new Peacock series, and that could be the case. I've taken the position that right now the authorities have not said this is the guy, this is the problem. They've not referenced that in any way, shape, or form. So that's why we're going to dive in tomorrow, and we're going to do 3 behavioral comparative analysis. Remember Dr. Brucato? Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Somebody just put it up. Right? Yeah, I love it. See, this is how easy it is right there. It's these puppet accounts. Whoever did that, you are as Dr. or excuse me, from Saturday Night Live, Father Sargucci would say.
Guido Sarducci.
He would go, "You're looking marvelous."
Oh, that's a different. But that was Billy Crystal, you mean?
Yeah, that's Billy Crystal, Father. Yeah, or Find the Pope in the Pizza. Father, Find the Pope in the Pizza.
Yeah.
That guy, yeah, Billy Crystal. Anyway, that shows right there how easy it is. We're talking about him, and somebody just created a puppet. And so I'm going to remain open-minded, but one of the things I think we're definitely going to get to is you're not going to want to miss it, guys, because we're going to break into, is it Rodgers? Is it Bundy? Is it Kohberger? Is it Rolling? Just all kinds of different things tomorrow. I'm not going to tip my hat too much. But one thing I will say is Brian Kohberger is a number 16. He's number 16.
You mean in Michael Stone's book?
Yes, he's a number 16, and that is definitive. So here's a question: what's Bundy? He's like a 20.
No, Bundy is a 17, unless you believe that he committed torture, some degree of torture. Then he would be an 18. But he did not engage in exquisite torture in a torture chamber or something that would be necessary for the higher rating. But it's pretty bad. I mean, serial killers are 17s.
And what about Rodger? Where's he fit?
A little complicated because he was such an inadequate personality that you could make an argument that he's a 13. But he may be a 15 if you view him just as a spree killer. So it's a little complicated because the thing that makes Kohberger 16 is the vaguely sexual but not overtly sexual act that was extremely vicious with malice aforethought. There was no emotional kind of aspect to it. It's just sort of mechanical and reptilian. Even Rodger was activated emotionally in the way that the spree killer is. What is this person doing?
Well, that's Papa. He's back.
They're trolling.
And he's a prison 10. He's saying that Kohberger is a prison 10.
I mean, I don't understand. Is this person a being
Well, no,
positive.
what this person is demonstrating is how easy it is today in social media to create a persona and then project it into the world.
But is the person saying anything offensive, or are they just
No, they're
posing?
just saying that he's going to look like a 10 when he comes through the door.
Yeah, I don't think they're a pro burger.
No, kind of like
I think they're kind of trolling. the
like
pub.
Bo.
Hmm.
Well, okay. I mean, well, all right. But Chris, I think it is important for us to start to figure out the type of offender that he is, to sort of stick him in a box in terms of criminology and all that. But unfortunately, I don't know. It just kind of, the thing with Kohberger is, and I have this feeling also with BTK, that's why we didn't include him in the new evil conspicuously, is that, I don't know, there are certain offenders that when you talk about them, you feel like you need a shower. It morally bothers you that you're paying attention to them. I really wish we didn't have to, but from a criminological perspective, I think it's important. I don't like that we're giving in to the demand of studying him in the way that I think he wants it to be studied, and all that. I also think, for those people who are fascinated by him, especially females who are fascinated by him, I think it's important to understand that the more time goes on, the more we realize that this is somebody who had a fundamental hatred of the notion of a woman having any power, intelligence, being smart, possibly knowing more than him. This certainly played out when he was a TA, and his unfair judgments and other stories we could tell about him. But it really creates a very interesting story in terms of his dynamic with his professor, that you really have to wonder if he even had any respect for her. I mean, he didn't seem to think very much of women. And I think the other thing you want to think about is, this is a person who in private was watching pornography in which women were drugged and forced to engage in activities almost as if they were dead, like they were corpses. And it's horrifying when you think that Bundy was a necrophile. There is part of me that wonders if what he was planning to do was to take a victim to the park or something and kill her and perhaps visit her afterward,
Like
Bundy style, right? There is part of me that thinks he was certainly aroused by a person that was like laying like a marionette that couldn't move. And it's, the other thing is, think about him going in there. He's got Ted Bundy on the mind, and he sees, let's say he wanted Maddie, and he goes in there and there are two women. Don't forget, Bundy took two victims that were female at the same time. You have to picture him thinking, Papa Bundy did it, right? And so I just think it would be very dangerous to get caught up in Papa Rodger, who was not on his phone on the Dateline episode. We didn't see any images of Papa Rodger, but we certainly saw images that are suggestive that he was obsessed with Bundy.
Or Elliot Rodger.
Bundy. Didn't I say, what did I say? Papa Rodger, right?
You said Papa Rodger, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean to say Elliot Rodger, excuse me. And so I think, that the other thing is that there were all these sorority house kind of style, how do I say this? Women who looked like they'd be the most popular girl in the sorority on his phone, that kind of thing. And Elliot Rodger was more angry at the entire female sex. I mean, I think it had to do with the woman who was this mother figure in his life, paying more attention to his brother, feeling rejected by his father, feeling that, this Maddie figure that he was friends with didn't want him, being rejected in the sense that his friend died. It was a whole soup of anger at the whole human race. I mean, he hated men and women in a lot of ways, and he killed males too. With Kohberger, it was more like, I want to get people to be a science, and they don't make any sense. No matter what I do, they don't like me. I could be interesting, I could be thin, I could be powerful, I could be in charge, I could be the smartest person in the room. Nothing worked in his experiment to reduce people to a science. And then he started getting interested in studying them like a bug, like they were bugs, that kind of thing. And I think at some point, he just started, it eventually came to, you know what? I'm going to make it happen, where the person isn't even conscious.
Dr. Gary,
It's really pathetic, but that's what I think.
what do you think about this question? Do you think that he would have essayed Maddie if Kaylee wasn't there? And once again, we don't know who. I mean, I think that people overall believe that Maddie was the intended target, but there's no actual proof of that. I mean, that's just kind of.
He made a beeline right up to her room, and he would have known where she was in that house. And even the prosecution, when they made their speech, said that basically he went in there willfully to kill her, but that he didn't intend to kill the other, which is what I've been saying for a long time.
You have said that you possibly thought that he may have tried to take her out of the house at some point.
That's what I think. My theory is that in imitation of Bundy, he might have been thinking about basically bludgeoning her in her sleep, like Bundy would do, and taking her off to that park that became the center of the alibi. Don't forget, there was a woman found dead in that Wallawee Park that they thought was a Bundy victim. They asked Bundy about that victim on the day of his execution, and he wouldn't say if he had killed her. Anyone who knew about Bundy would know about that story. It would be like a little homage. And it was very typical of Bundy to bludgeon you sleeping or to knock you out and then to take you to a wooded area and to do what you were going to do to them, and then to revisit them afterward, to revisit the remains afterward. And, so that has been a hypothesis of mine. But then when he got in there, nothing went the way it was expected. And then, of course, to Chris's theory, there is the idea that the setting in which that happened, the riskiness of going into a place where there are multiple females that have the sorority kind of thing going on, the whole thing feels like a gigantic homage to the Chi Omega attack. And, so it's complicated because it's sort of like simultaneously an attack on all women, like this sort of giant misogynistic frenzy, while also being this attack where you've got a fixation on a very particular person. It's sort of like a little column A, a little column B. Mm-hmm. And incidentally, that reminds me of the worst Freudian slip I ever had, which was that there was a person I was asked to evaluate, a student I was asked to evaluate who was very dangerous, that engaged in activities that really alarmed me. And someone who asked me to have a look said, "Do you think that this is a person who is crying out for help, who's a little bit sort of mentally ill, but not really dangerous? Or do you think that there's somebody who could commit a really dangerous act in the school setting?" And I meant to say a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. And I said, in a Freudian slip, a little bit of column A and a little bit of Columbine. And it's interesting. There are people like that are sort of simultaneously sort of unwell and really freaking dangerous. And I kind of think that's how you had to see this guy. He was hiding that super dangerous part. And this is the part that bothers me about the autism thing. If he were autistic, he would have a very hard time hiding aspects of himself, and he wouldn't be particularly manipulative. This guy had to slip under the nose of forensic experts, literally taking assignments from them, learning, studying, the whole thing, and then going home, literally in a world of pornography, which was outrageously violent, seething with hatred, probably going all over the internet looking at unseemly and disturbing things, right? Obsessing over serious, and then hiding it like a reptile, hiding it the whole time. And that is masterful. I have to say that's what you would see more in a psychopath than you would see in an autistic person, although some people are a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. I think Elliot Rodger, who was somebody that was thought to be on the autism spectrum, was also psychopathic and extremely narcissistic. So I mean, extremely narcissistic. I mean, so these are not mutually exclusive concepts, right? 50% of serial killers who are sexually motivated have schizoid autistic detachment, which gives them a mechanical, intellectualized detachment from what they're doing. But they're not autistic. They have that same mechanical, and that's what I meant in the profile when I said that I expected this person to be mechanical, obsessional, paranoid, angry, grudge holding, that kind of weird person.
Have you read any of his manifesto, Elliot Rodgers?
Every word.
He
wrote about it at great length in The New Evil.
There was one part of it where he had talked about putting women in concentration camps and, looking down on them from a tower. And I mean, it was some of the most bizarre, psychotic, terrible. And, this is what he's fantasizing about. And then he goes out and commits these awful murders. And I mean, his mind was so warped, but he was, I'm fantastic. I'm wonderful. Why would anybody not want to be with me? I mean, it's just, you're reading that and going, I mean, that's just really dark stuff. It's some of the scariest stuff that these guys, they want power. They want to manipulate a situation and forever kind of have that in their mind.
Here's the difference though. Here's one part of the difference. Brian Kohberger looks at Elliot as an amateur. Because for two reasons. One, he killed himself. That in of itself is very problematic for somebody who is a budding serial killer and that you're modeling after. Okay, there's one thing when you do behavioral analysis, with 10 filters, one of the filters is suspectology. And then when you start to dive into what the suspect was looking at, i.e. victimology, then you'll see that the two don't even match. They don't even get close.
I agree 100%.
And we're going to break that down tomorrow at length because it's already started with people, because of the new shows and there's things coming. And what I read today in the New York Post about, the different things, incels, and that Brian was, inspired by Elliot and et cetera. Well, you know what? I'm sure Brian read about Elliot. I'm sure Brian studied Elliot, but he wasn't inspired by him. And I'm going to show that tomorrow with Dr. Brucato, and hopefully Dr. Burgess is going to come on with us. But
Chris, before you lose a really important point, because what you're saying in essence is, and this, I think it's such a smart point, and I don't want it to go missed. What you're basically saying is he may have had things in common with Elliot, but he would have been ashamed of that.
Yeah,
he did not aspire to be an Elliot. He would have aspired to be a Bundy.
Right. And my prediction is going to be he's going to tell us that.
Well, but there's it's like if you were to say to the average person, who do you want to play you in a movie? Brad Pitt. But like it would make more sense for them to be played by Steve Buscemi. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the average person exaggerates themselves. And
right.
I think he didn't want to be a schlubby,
If I were to go sit with him in jail, meaning let's say patrol arrested him and they say, hey, Detective McDonough, he's sitting in the interview room. Okay. And I've done my homework. I'm not going to go into him and say, hey, at some point in the conversation, so why was Elliot such an inspiration for you? When on his phone, he's got all this P material, violent P material, all the photographs of Ted Bundy, all of the cosplay information, Ted Bundy, the videos that he's watching, Ted Bundy, and then shift the conversation to, so why was Rodgers such an inspiration for you, Rodgers? I mean, can you imagine if you did that with Brian Kohberger?
I would never say inspiration.
Well,
I would say, why did you feel sometimes you could identify with? But to say inspiration, no, I think because that would be insulting to such a person. That would be like saying to Steve Jobs, who first had the idea? and put the idea in your head. I mean, he'd be like, he would be horrified, that kind of thing. You do not go into a person with a colossal ego and suggest that you imitated anybody.
Who was BTK's first motivation?
Well, that's a tricky question. You mean, is there a serial killer he was interested in? He was very interested in H.H. Holmes, that the one that Eric Larson wrote about, the Death of the White City author. He had a fascination with that particular killer. They all have someone that they're interested in. BTK also used to say that he was inspired by things like, when he was a kid, he used to watch Dudley Do-Right cartoons where the woman would be like tied to the train track and find it arousing. Right. They all have their weird things that inspire them. You and I were sitting around inspired by, Abraham Lincoln, and they're sitting around thinking, boy, would I love to grow up to be like, fill in the gap.
And that's the point. Can you imagine going into Dennis Rader with the publicity that Brian Kohberger has, and he knows there's publicity about him, and then people are writing and saying and doing all of this stuff that's comparing him to the wrong guy? He'll blow a gasket.
You mean intentionally say, when did he inspire you? You mean purposely to mess with him? Oh, I see. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but don't you also sense, Gary, that he's going to look at everybody out there saying all of this stuff and turning to his cellmate, his cellie, and going, they got it all wrong. They got it all wrong.
Well, we said before this guy was even a suspect, we said that whoever did this would be the kind of person that would not be able to handle the narrative being a little off, being a little wrong. That's what I thought he was going to do in the courtroom. That's why they had to tell everybody he was autistic, partly, because he would have been snapping. Can you imagine, especially if it were a female person presenting information, they said one thing wrong, excuse me, that's not what happened, that kind of thing.
The only time he did that is when they asked him, and the guys and gals, you heard it first on the lab, go watch his yes answers again. And when they ask him, the judge asked him, did you kill Ethan Chapin? He goes, yes. His voice drops. And he's a little more firm. I sat there when I saw that, I went, oh man, this guy's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Josh, can you pull that up?
Yeah. It does seem like he was a little softer about the others.
He couldn't get a flying fig about any of these people. Don't get any fantasies that he cared about any of these people. It would be like asking you to mourn, the mouse that you killed on a trap last year. He doesn't think of these even as people. Forget it. When he talked about it, it was like listening to a robot. See, and I thought the reaction that the prosecutor had, I swear it was like, because the whole thing was so dissociated and numb, that it was like this inhumane thing where you just kind of go like, now that I'm going to be away from this guy, it's okay to realize that like there are feelings here, because he just has this way of introducing dissociation into the room, like that, like you're talking about a case from thousands of years ago or something.
Well, and you said that the 2 years ago, the very first time you said the type of person we're going to be seeing. I mean, he fits to the day, day. And
it was like he stuck to the script.
Before they even caught him. And you know what, Cassie, we just talked about that. It could have been, but right now there's not anything solidified just yet.
Should I bring this up here?
And good point. He didn't admit that. And the fact that the DA gave a state of mind as to what he was thinking, how does he know? I thought that was weird. How does he know? He doesn't know what if this was a sexually motivated situation.
He just said that nothing happened, but he didn't speak to what might have been intended.
Right. I mean, this guy's got you know, horrific pee on his phone. And he, you know, what are they just going to make that go away? I'm telling you, when it all comes out, if some of it comes out, hopefully it does. What I mean by that is not for the family's sake, but to show what kind of person this really is. And I said Santa Claus gave him a gift, and he gave the family coal.
Mm.
You know, of course he had that as a sitting in his toolbox. That's what his phone was all about. And who knows what was on his digital footprint when he took the TV out of his house. The defense, I mean, I thought that from day one. Why in the world are they sending the defense investigators over to pull his TV out of his house? What's sitting in that hard drive?
Well, it's a good question, but it's a really good question. I mean, I just think to expect this person to anything other than take some of it to the grave, you know, is fantasy land. I mean, you know, he's certainly going to bargain. He's going to do what he has to do to get attention. He'll tell stories in which he remembers himself in a more glorified kind of way. But, you know, and eventually, you know, boredom and isolation and all that. I mean, it'll keep him going. I could see this guy writing some kind of autobiographical account or something, because he finds himself so fascinating. But in the final analysis, this is just an example of, like, don't count on it.
I'm sorry, Josh.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, no worries. Okay, here we go.
Yes. All right. Thank you. And now, while you're standing, actually, why don't you take the sign of respect? But you consumed burglary, a fine of up to 50, mandatory minimum to be enforced in the form of is you would the right to hold public office. Has anyone threatened you or anyone close to you to get you to plead guilty?
No.
Has anyone other than the state's agreements with respect to the plea agreement, has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea agreement?
No.
Has anyone told you to be untruthful in answering my questions today?
No.
Has anyone offered you a reward of any kind other than the plea agreement in order to get you to plead guilty today?
No.
Very robotic.
Other than the guilt decision. And Mr. Kohberger, you understand that by entering the guilty plea in this case, you would be giving up.
Dr. Gary, you had said, you know, how this could affect him if he tried to, you know, like I believe it was Bundy who tried to kind of pull back his confession. And as the judge said here, look, if you do that, this can be used against you going forward.
Your right to appeal any decision this court made, as well as your sentence.
Yes.
Have you had enough time to decide whether or not to plead guilty?
Yes.
Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Given your choices, do you believe it's in your best interest to plead guilty?
Yes.
Have you discussed fully the matter of pleading guilty with your attorney, and are you satisfied with the advice you've received?
Yes.
Has your attorney done everything you've asked them to do?
Yes.
Document out? Did you understand those? Examine witnesses presented by the state. You did not wish to had you not pled guilty.
Yes.
You understand you're giving up that privilege. Burglary, the state would have to have proven that on or about November 13, 2022 in Latah County, Idaho, you unlawfully entered a residence located at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. As to count 2, the state would have had to have proven that on or about that same date in Latah County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died. As to count 3, the state would have had to have proven that on that same date in Latah County at that same address, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. As to count 4, the state would have had to have
Is he not
proven
answering?
that on or about that same date in
He hasn't yet.
Latah
Okay.
County, Idaho, you did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing her, from which she died. And then as to count 5, also murder in the first degree, that on or about November. I understand that by pleading guilty, the state no longer has to a document number 2 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder.
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being?
Yes.
And did you
Okay,
do
now
that
back up
willfully,
for a moment
unlawfully,
for a second.
deliberately, in state of Idaho?
Look how he, okay, stop. Look how he answers the very first question. He leans forward in a thrusting motion. Okay, that is a definitive affirmative. I'm taking credit for all of this. Watch. He doesn't do it on the second.
Kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being.
Yes.
And did you
Back
do
up
that
to
willfully,
where-
the
back-
felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Back up one more time.
Enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder.
Yes.
See how he leans forward?
Did you?
Yeah.
You, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County.
I'm slightly disappointed that he didn't have to at least stand up and be the center of attention for this.
Well, that by leaning forward, he's taking control.
Yeah, I know, but he was standing up when he took, the oath, and then the judge let him sit down. I don't know. I mean, I just thought that I think they should have made his ass stand up the whole time.
He doesn't show any of the body language that would be consistent with remorse or being traumatized. He doesn't appear traumatized by what happened or even afraid. He has more of like I haven't evaluated him, but he has what you sometimes see in psychopathic people, this complete inability to be afraid. It's like a kind of an amygdala problem where they just stay flat. Like if you were to, that's why people like that can sometimes pass lie detector tests, because they don't even, their heartbeat doesn't even get up. They're not afraid. They're just, it's one of the reasons that when a psychopath lies, you believe them, because one of the clues that your body uses to tell when someone is lying is that they're slightly nervous. And when a person is flat and even, you believe anything they say. And the psychopath will look you right in the eye and say, "Wasn't me."
I am aware that the judge did tell him to sit. I understand. I'm just saying that I found it odd, and I get, people are saying safety reasons. I don't know what standing or sitting is going to do for him that's going to keep him any safer. I mean, there's a guard right there looking at the crowd, making sure that nobody's going to jump over, because people do that often. I mean, it does happen. So he's not the only one that hasn't had to stand while entering a plea.
State of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being.
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
Did you on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho?
I've noticed that. I did notice that.
Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Gonzalez, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And did you on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
I
See,
would
he had
ask
a
the
little more
state,
animation there where he see his head. Watch when he answered it. Yes.
this time to
Go back for a
Yes.
second.
willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, or Ethan Chapin, a human being.
Yes.
Did you do
Being
that
very
willfully?
stoic.
He's in stern.
Well, he's stoic, like Dr. Brucato's talking about.
Deliberately with
But watch the
premeditation
second
and
answer.
malice aforethought.
Yes.
His head nods.
I would ask the state at this time to
Back up one more. Watch this again. It's very
November
subtle.
13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho. Did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that
Stoic.
willfully, unlawfully, deliberately with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
Now he bows.
I would ask the state at this time to provide its recitation of its
And
factual
that,
basis.
and
Had
that
this
bow, meaning if you were sitting there, changes the pitch of his confession. Because what he's doing, we see this all the time in interviews when somebody is telling you the truth or signs of deception. Okay. That's what he's trying to do is he's the guy in the interview room that leans forward and says, look, I'm telling you what I did. Okay. Do you understand me? That's that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Wasn't
Go
that
ahead.
like what Todd did to you?
well, yeah, Todd was a good answer. Okay. But it's these guys, once they're in the container and, you don't know what they've done or what, how they got to why you're sitting in that chair. And he leans over, all those little confirmation signals kind of go, okay, how do I take this? Like Dr. Brucato's saying, is he being truthful? Is he trying to send me into left field and the right field? Don Wells was like this. He could look right at you, sit right in front of you, and just kind of punch you away. That's
Oh,
why
yeah.
he stayed away. Go ahead.
But Chris, you notice that, I mean, the average person who committed an atrocity like this would feel the family members' eyes boring into them. At the hearing, they would turn very slightly. You've seen this, Chris, haven't you? They look at them, sometimes even sadistically, tauntingly. This is like worse. This is like the person who doesn't even care enough to glance at you. It's sort of like if you've ever in your personal life felt rejected by someone, right? And the person flat out was like, I'm just not interested in you. I'm not attracted to you. That's hurtful. But the only thing worse is when they won't even look at you. They are so indifferent to you that they don't even feel the need to insult you. It's absence of interest. And I think that at least if a person's mean to you, they have feelings. They're just nasty feelings. This is like, I have no emotion whatsoever about you, your children, nothing. Can I get out of here, please?
The garage is closed. There's no neon lights.
Right. And I think it's more painful. The old saying, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. This is that dark place on the emotional spectrum, which represents like absolute zero. There is nothing there. It's like going to another planet. And that's how you have to think of it. This is a reptile. It's like asking the reptile, do you feel sorry for the cricket you ate? No. How long do I have to sit here, please? You know what I mean? I mean, it's horrible to say, but that's what you're dealing with. And the more I look at him, the more I think there's nothing in there. Nothing. So the only reason a person like that is going to talk and open up and whatever is if it serves the reptile. You want your crickets? Talk.
And if we don't get this right, i.e. the public,
Yeah.
when he does talk, the reptile's going to spew all the language that he wants.
Oh, he'll
But
do
if,
whatever
but
he
if
wants.
somebody gets it right, and instead of going in there and saying, well, tell me about how you felt about this, because he's going to read all the books, he's going to watch all the movies, he's going to see all the pundits, everybody's going to have an opinion, and guess what? He's going to correct it all if they're right.
Oh, yes. Or he'll want to. I don't know if he should be given an opportunity to, but he's certainly going to try.
Well, he'll be in there for another 60, 70, 100 years, whatever it is. He'll talk. He's going to do his own thing.
How long do you, I mean, I know that this is clearly speculation. And also, I just want to say that we're going to take a couple calls. The link is pinned at the top.
Oh,
And
good. I love when we do that.
yeah, we'll take a couple calls here. But how long, I mean, how long do you think till he, I mean, what are we thinking here? A year?
What, until he talks?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on what he needs. You're still thinking like a human being.
What's he bargaining for?
Whatever he wants. Books, intellectual stimulation, company, whatever. He does this. I'm telling you, you have to take the human part of your brain and put it over here to understand this. This is like total space brain, where it's just like there is no feeling here. You know? Remember when Virgil takes Dante to the doorway to hell, and it says, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." It's like that. Forget it, right? Remember, Dante says, "This is where sighs go to die." There's no feeling here. This is hell, emptiness. And the minute you start thinking, "Oh, when is he going to feel he wants this?" Forget it. It's all reptilian. When does he need something? And that is when he will be pressured to exchange. And he won't even tell you the truth most of the time because he has to keep morsels to tease you with. No, Bundy used to do that. Bundy used to make lies up to have juicy morsels. Forget the feelings. What happened to Josh? He blew himself off the screen.
I'm still
Don't
here.
worry about it.
Oh, that's a little creepy. You disappeared, but your voice is here. You're like drop dead Fred or something.
I like those.
Huh.
Okay, hold on. I'm just setting up.
I like that somebody in the audience said, "Stop insulting reptiles." Okay. Good point. It's a good point. Because I'm sorry, but I've had it with the whole,
It's classic.
I've had it with the whole Kohberger fascination. You know, I mean, give me a break.
All right. Hold
Are you coming back there, Pumpkin?
I think he turned back into a mouse. The pumpkin turned back into a mouse at the stroke of midnight or something. What is he doing?
I don't know
Hey.
what he's doing.
I'm doing stuff. All right.
Wait, we know that.
He went out to the street
Kind
to
of
beg
forward.
someone to call.
All right.
He's calling the show. He's like out on the street.
This is just a nightmare. It wasn't.
Welcome to the lab.
What's that? Let's make you. All right. Lisa, go ahead. You're on with Dr. Gary, Chris, and myself. You there, Lisa?
What is happening?
Lisa's not there. Hold on. We need to connect. Lisa, are you there? Okay. Well, no, Lisa. Ari.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
You're on with Dr. Gary, Chris, and myself. What can we do for you?
I was wondering what you guys thought would be an adequate punishment for Kohberger.
Would be a what, Ari?
An
What's that?
adequate punishment.
Oh. What's an adequate punishment for Kohberger? What do you think is an adequate punishment?
I mean, you guys are talking about the attention that he loves, so probably just depriving him of that at the very least.
On top of his life sentence?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a 50-50 split with the family. So I think, whatever they're feeling is actually the persons that should answer that question. But what's going to happen, unfortunately, his punishment is going to be pretty, it will be bad. Would you agree with that?
Um, I think if he gets to get his letters and fan mail and talk about what he did, he'll be satisfied.
Yeah, I think you're right from my perspective. I agree with you, kiddo. Can I call you kiddo?
Sure.
You already did.
You're awesome. That's a great question. Gary, what say you?
I think that people who wind up in prison and people who wind up in hell are there long before they go to prison and go to hell. I think this guy was already living in the darkness, and now it's just permanent. And the idea is that all the things that were being used to compensate have to be stripped from him, so that all that's left is looking inward and going, I have no control. There's nothing in here. I'm alone with my thoughts, and all my attempts to get what I want by force failed, that kind of thing. And it's a like what Coleridge called a death in life. The reality is there is no life there. There are things that can compensate, and it's essential that he not get them. But there is this movement in the contemporary world to view everything as sickness, and as a consequence, prisoners are stroked and kind of patted and given gentle treatment. There is a tendency to kind of have sympathy for the mugger more than the mugged, and so there's a lot of like, it's not human to just sit in a jail cell all day. You should be given crayons and a pad and that kind of, and so that's something to think about. But I because let's face it, I mean, people are human beings, and there are interesting questions about that kind of Foucault question of are criminals to a certain extent sick, or are they just and I think that's the problem with the narcissistic culture we're living in, is that everything is everything else's fault. I didn't make a choice, right? That kind of thing. Personally, I think that he has to live with the consequences of what he did, and that's not so easy when you're having a fantastic isolated existence. But I also think that for people that are spiritually inclined, you have to remember there's really no getting away with anything. And people can be sorry, they can have remorse of heart, they can make amends, they can but amends, Kohberger? I mean, I think this guy feels nothing.
Yeah, he was. It's like he's been, or he's absolutely emotionless. I mean, he was pleading guilty to a quadruple homicide. He's going to spend the rest of his life in prison, and he had no emotion about it. I mean, none, nothing. I mean, there were some head nods, and there was some, but I mean, other than, he was stoic. He was
all right. And unlike an autistic, he had excellent self-assessment when he wrote on the internet that he had a problem of wondering why he couldn't feel anything about people. You remember when he said that he could look at people and see them as meat?
Yeah.
Wasn't that what he said?
I think it was something.
Or look at himself and see himself as nothing, as me. And that's what you want to understand is, and he doesn't have the autistic quality of looking at himself and going like, why am I what did I say? It's more, there's almost a sadness to that. Listen, I'm a very intellectualized person. I'm not on the spectrum. I'm a very intellectualized person, and I have times I'll talk to a person and I don't understand why they react the way they do, because I'm so distant from things. I could talk about them like they're nothing, and then I go, what did I do? I get that phenomenon. This is a person who's looking at himself and going, I could look at a person and feel absolutely dead, nothingness. And he rued that fact. He recognized it in himself, as if he was turning into the darkness, getting pulled into the darkness. And I think that to understand Kohberger's brain, the way that somebody has to understand him who goes in and talks to him, you have to say, at that moment in your life when you got interested in studying crime, I bet there was a division in you. Part of you was interested in it because you were fighting your dark side. You wanted to learn that it felt like some dark creature was taking over. And another part of you was getting pulled into it and enjoying it. And you broke in two in your mind. You were like both of those things at the same time. And I think that's what drew him to people like Bundy, the fragmentation of himself. I don't mean it in a schizophrenic way. I mean that kind of dissociative thing. And he described that dissociative phenomenon, that breaking. And, you know, the visual snow and the world being pixelated and all these kind of dissociative kind of symptoms that I think he had going on, even though people say they're neurological. I think he was a little dissociative. And, you know, I also think he blipped out under stress when he left the sheath. I think he had that quality, that dissociative kind of thing that you see in some people.
And Ari, I want to thank you for your question. I would like to see him eat a raw steak every day for the rest of his life, but as a part of his punishment, however, that's cruel and unusual, I guess. He's you know, it would be nice if he just fades into obscurity, like the snow of yesteryears. Dr. Gary, as people would say, would be just fine with me. You know, and again, the impact statements, you know, that we're going to hear from family, and I truly hope that Steve Consalves reconsiders, because his words will matter. His words will be etched, and they will go down in history with this plea deal. And I truly do hope that he does reconsider. I hope all the families, the victims, give a victim impact. I've given them before. They're not easy to give, but I think they're necessary.
But he won't give a flying rat's behind what they're saying. You know that.
Maybe. Yeah, sure he won't. But
did you ever express powerful feelings to a person that you knew felt nothing?
Yes.
Like you're telling a person how much you love them and how much you've sacrificed for them, and they're looking at you like, can I get up from the table now? And you're going like, I've given up this, I've given up that, I've loved you, I've made sacrifice. And they're going, all right, yeah, I gotta go. Power Rangers is on. It's time to go watch it. Bye. You know, those kind of people, there are people like, and I think that's how you have to picture him. He's literally just going to sit there like, we finished? That's cute. Bye. See what I'm saying? And if they show pain, this type of person might enjoy that. It would make them feel powerful. But unfortunately, there's going to be nothing in there but pain. I just think you have to go in there knowing it's not for them. It's for you. It's for yourself. It's cathartic for yourself. It's to honor the victim. But don't think for a minute you're going to affect this kind of offender. Forget, that's fantasy land. You know what I'm saying, Chris, right? This guy's dead in the soul. He's not going to be stirred to upset.
Yeah, but I think it's more. I think it's more for the people that are listening, the courts, the
right.
in the world. I mean, I don't know.
My child was a person.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And like
that's why you did it.
What's that?
Is that why you did it?
Look, absolutely. And you know, when you talked about that earlier, you know, I went out to my mother's grave just the other week, and it needed some TLC. You know, I mean, the headstone needed to be cleaned and all that kind of stuff. And you know, I was talking to my grandma about it, and you know, I teared up a little bit while I was talking to her, and you know, she says it's going to be okay. And I said, I know it's going to be okay. It's been 37 years. I said, of course it's going to be okay. I said, but when I cry, I feel like I remember her. I feel like it's real. I feel like that I would rather cry and feel the pain than to forget about her. And, so, you know, even my children, you know, who obviously have never met their grandmother, you know, I say she was I'll show them pictures and things like that. And they say that, you know, she's a real person. She was a real person.
That's right.
And so, yes, exactly. And I think that's
why you do it.
Of course.
And your mother figured something out. You see, you're saying something extremely important. There's only one way to be remembered forever. There's only one way to have a kind of eternal life. and it's to love something.
Yes.
If you love, someone will remember you forever.
And it's the hardest part
That's
of life is when you lose somebody that you love with all your heart. It's the hardest thing that you'll ever go through. And put on top of that, them being taken by a violent human.
That's right.
It changes everything, you know. Let's take another one. Muscles and Mascara. Hey, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you all?
Good.
I know the name.
Yeah.
Hey, Dr. Gary, how are you? Hey, Chris. Thanks for giving us this opportunity. I've always wanted to ask a couple questions, so thank you.
I never heard you speak before. Where are you from? You have such a fascinating accent.
Yeah, I'm in Tennessee.
Oh, you've got some interesting cases there, don't you?
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. That's
How
how
far
I found Josh and how I found Chris. So,
was it the Summer Wells case?
Yep.
yes, I'm from Hawkins County. Yes, sir.
Oh Lord,
Yeah.
that's a special place. It might as well be Hawkins from Stranger Things.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's interesting for
What's up,
sure.
Carol? What do you got?
All right. So one question I wanted to ask is, do you think that the knife sheath was a subconscious need to quote unquote leave a mark, or do you think it was a complete rare error?
I think he's an idiot. I
Okay.
think he left it accidentally. He blipped out. It was a mistake. He gets freaked out by Xana interrupting him. And I tremble to think why it fell off. I have said for a long time that because I believed the motivation was sexual, part of me always wondered if it had been on his belt and he had opened his belt.
Hmm.
But the point is, it got left, and
Yeah.
I don't think that he was some genius who left it there. In fact, he went back for it.
Yep.
Yeah, I always want to, I would love, and I'm sure everybody would, that moment that he realized that he did not have it on him. I bet he was looking in the car. I bet he was, he was just looking everywhere probably. And to me, that's kind of glorious. I'm sure that he freaked out.
But you know what really bothers me is everybody assumes that he was buying another one on Amazon because he wanted to have one to show the police. I think there's a simpler explanation, which I said on Dateline.
You think he was going to use it again?
He was planning to do it again.
That's what I thought too.
But both things could be true.
They could both be true, but they left that conveniently out. I mean, if you committed a crime and it was your glory moment, you were never going to do it again.
Yeah.
I think you would dissociate yourself from it, and that would be the end of it. You only in a person who was like, I have a very particular fantasy need to use that weapon, and I have to replace it for the next time because next time I'm going to do it better. You know, it's like a redo. Would feel and the compulsion was so strong that he almost idiotically left a history, which he did, by the way, tried to get rid of it. But the compulsion was so strong that he couldn't resist even doing it where there would be an electronic trail and everything. I mean, this is really fascinating when you think about it. Chris, isn't that interesting when you think about it, that compulsion would be so strong that he couldn't resist, even though he was afraid people might be on his tail?
Yeah, I mean,
he had to buy a knife and a sheath. I mean, what a dope.
Yeah, brought him back in the morning too, right? Muscles, what do you think? What's your theory?
I'm the same thought process as you guys, and I actually thought that the second one he was looking for was indeed for a repeat act. Do you think it was his first? That you think it was his first crime and or I guess violent crime? I guess is what I'm trying to say, that he's ever committed on a person. Do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was right on time, right on average time in terms of age to commit the first murder.
Everything else, I would think Mascara was in his head up to that point. And so had he practiced it out, had he laid it out, muscle memory kind of concept, what would I do in this? What would I do in that? I think he went through that probably 100,000 times to the point where it was mechanical. And now that it didn't go the way he wanted it to go, potentially, i.e. the knife sheath. It went from an organized to a disorganized crime scene. He freaked. And
Sure.
the other thing I want to take exception to is the Power Rangers that Dr. Brucato talked about a little while ago on the last caller.
Well,
Sorry.
you like Power Rangers?
No, I prefer Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Amen, Chris.
well,
Amen.
Thank you, young lady. Thank you, young lady.
The first thing that popped in my head.
We are so grateful for your call. And,
Yeah. Thank you.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
you know,
which turtle?
where in the world did you come up with Power Rangers?
Raphael is the only one,
Thank-
right?
Yeah.
Is that
That's
the purple one
the
or
idea of
red?
power, I guess. I don't know. I mean, what did
I
you
like
want?
Donatello.
I like Donatello too. True.
I like
Yeah.
them all, but
There
It's
I'm a
interesting some people
Donatello
think
fan.
that the artist Raffaele.
It's so great to hear your voice to connect it with your name. Now we know.
Been in your chat for years, hasn't she, Chris?
Huh?
Muscles has been in your chat for years.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely
she's
have.
amazing.
She is
Absolutely.
And we thank you so much. Tomorrow's going to be another great one tomorrow. Seriously, don't
Looking
miss
forward to it. Yeah, looking forward to it. And thank you for all your stuff that you've done for summer, Chris. Really appreciate it. I've done as much I'm not to do here. So if there's something else we can do here for that case, I'm all ears. I've been on that case from day one, the first minute that it went out. So if there's anything that you know that we can do here as a community, I would certainly be open to any of those ideas as well. So thanks very much. Thanks,
You're
Josh.
welcome.
Thanks, Dr.
Yeah,
Dr. Gary.
What
Thank
a nice
Thank you
call.
for calling.
And I mean, I'm fine if you want to take another. I don't know, Chris, if you have
Yeah,
to go.
let's do one more and then we'll shut her down.
Okay. It's
we
been
have-
a fascinating conversation. But I think
Lisa.
I'm just curious what else people are curious about.
We're gonna try Lisa one more time. Lisa from Calgary. You there, Lisa? There's 3 Lisas up here. There's got one of these has to
There are
work.
3 Lisas.
Yeah, there's 3. Hold on. We're gonna make this happen. Lisa, are you there? I went through the first one.
Lisa. It's like the old joke that a kid comes home late and his father says to him, Joey, and he says, Dad, I'm the one in the middle, you drunk. Now
I'm the one.
all right, sorry, I've got so many jokes. All right, so do we have somebody other than Lisa? Lisa.
I don't know. I'm trying. I would like. Lisa, are you there?
It sounds like a spirit box.
All right, we're gonna try. Don't get me started on that. Love a Scorpio. Go ahead. How are you?
Hello. Let me just turn
Hey.
off my background.
Who's this?
This is Love a Scorpio. I don't know.
It is, and I'm having technical difficulties. Hold on one second. I wasn't expecting to get on. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi.
Gentlemen.
Hi, Lisa.
Sorry.
So obviously we've all been watching this horrific case, and I really wanted to know if the investigation was pretty much a botch from the beginning.
That's a Chris question.
That's a loaded question.
I know.
However,
That's why I'm tossing it to you.
yeah.
I don't want to
So,
opinion on that.
so here's my takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
I think that every investigation has mistakes,
Right.
right? And it doesn't matter, how many years you've been doing it. You're going to do something that you forgot to do, meaning you didn't do it. That said, I think in the beginning, when this whole thing came down, right from the get-go, I will let you into something. At the time I was in Idaho, the reason Karen and I were there
Mm-hmm.
during the, Thanksgiving that day
Mm-hmm.
is because we were in Fruitland helping the police department. I was assigned to the Fruitland Police Department working with them in the Michael Vaughn
Right, with Monkey.
Right, with Monkey.
Mm-hmm.
All of those Idaho State Police forensic people left. They left us and they went to this case. So all of those individuals are the ones that responded from Idaho State Police Lab that were working on Michael Vaughn's case. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that said, when I got up there, which was Thanksgiving Day, personally, I noticed right off the bat that the victims' cars were still parked outside.
Mm-hmm.
That they dodged a bullet, because the defense would have argued that for days. I also, as you know, saw the glove.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like there was just so much, going on so quickly that they weren't, you could tell there was a lot of inexperience happening.
Right.
And now that happens anywhere. If this is the first time you've ever dealt with a quadruple homicide. I came from an area and an agency where, we had 3 murders in a single night. Okay. And so we had a lot of volume.
Right.
And so I can't say that, they did a bunch wrong. I think the lab folks got it right, but I do wonder why there wasn't a more experienced lead investigator assigned to the case. I mean, there were people on that agency that had 10, 15, 20 years. Why
Right.
weren't they assigned as the case agent? I did not like the university's involvement.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that they were attending the meetings, that in of itself threw me off. That they were at the press conferences. They had assembled a mediation management or a communications team.
Mm-hmm.
That's they dodged a bullet. Had
And-
Ann Taylor had a shot at that,
Right.
she probably would have torn up. So that's my 15 cents. There's more, but what's your thought?
So what I saw your obviously when the verdict came in, I watched it, and I watched it actually on your channel with you. So I do believe the college has a lot to do with it. I am in the same mind that you're thinking. If I'm wrong, just tell me if I'm wrong. But the college has a lot of input into what happened.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you that there was an overriding sense of let's get this done with and move on. I mean, they made the decision within 3 weeks, 4 weeks to tear the house down.
Right.
I mean, who does that?
I've never seen it before.
Yeah. And then you have the college professor who's not under, or the college president who's not under the gag order, penning a book and then putting a chapter in there about attending all the intelligence meetings about an ongoing investigation, and then writes the chapter as if, he's learned a management leadership skill.
Mm-hmm.
That bothered me. It still bothers me to this day.
It bothers me too. It really does.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that, regardless of the outcome that we live with today, right? What they did previously just didn't give the victims a chance to come to the trial.
So true. And now that causes us all, right, to step back and say, hey, wait a minute then. Why the rush for the plea deal all of a sudden, where the judge gets it on a Monday and the same day the family gets it, according to the families, right?
Right.
And he's reading it on Wednesday, and one of the first things he says is, hey, stop bombarding my staff
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I just got this like you did on Monday. So you just have to ask yourself, I mean, it's pure speculation, of course, but we have to step back and say, wait a minute, was that the plan?
Right.
Is, you know,
Mhm.
and
Did you find that inappropriate, Chris, for him to say that?
you know, the judge didn't have, you know, no matter what people said, the judge is bound by the law and the rules of the engagement, right? Meaning whatever they signed, whatever the two parties stipulated to, whatever the defendant said, hey, yeah, I did it. Okay. And he signed off on all the forms. You know, could the judge come back and say, well, wait a minute, guys, we want to talk about this?
Mhm.
Yeah, he could have done that, but he couldn't stop it. It was in motion.
Yeah, but I
And
mean, what he said about you know, people bombarding his office
Right.
with phone calls. Do you think that was inappropriate?
well, I think the way he said it about the families, that the family had motivated that to happen. That yeah, he should have just let it go.
Yeah, I mean, it's over. Yeah, right.
Yeah, he seemed a little hostile in the very, for a few minutes right there.
He did. He certainly.
It was interesting for sure, and by the way, that's all it's already blowing back on him. I mean, with Santa Claus, I call him Santa Claus Thompson.
Right.
Because he doesn't he look like Santa?
Absolutely.
And like I've told everybody that he gave, Kohberger a present and he gave the family coal,
Right.
that day.
Right.
Not that the decision was wrong, i.e. to take the plea.
Mhm.
What was wrong is they didn't get everybody in the room.
Mhm.
All the families. You don't send an email with an attachment and say, hey, what do you think? Give us your feelings.
Right.
Because I think we know probably what happened behind the scenes. The phones were off the hook. Those are the kind of things you do in person with these families. They had suffered so much, delay after delay and tactic after tactic. Remember last week, they were trying to blame it on four other people.
Yeah. Third party. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that helps.
Yeah.
It does. And I truly appreciate you all on the panel. You are great guys. But I just wanted to say that I just found it really strange. Like the judge just came out a little bit too harsh. He seemed to be aiming it somewhat at the victims' families. And I know that the trial is about the victims and the perpetrator, but I just don't feel like he gave the families enough, just that support that I feel like victims' family needs. That's pretty much what I'll close with. And thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you.
for
Appreciate it.
Although I think it's important to emphasize that in the end, Hitler is going to look kind of like a gift, in the sense that if the original judge had remained in place, it would have been a whole different story here. I think that Kohberger was cornered partially because Hitler just wouldn't allow a lot of the crap.
I thought that he did a fantastic job, pushing this along. I mean, after all the delays and things like that. And look, I give him credit for all. I know exactly what you mean. It just did, nobody's perfect and nobody's asking anybody to be perfect. It just felt very insensitive. And, and I thought that, that was a huge day for everybody,
Well, yeah. And I don't think we can judge the families.
No.
Because the family, they get a get out of jail free card, unfortunately, because of the emotional roller coaster. All four families, actually all five families, including Kohberger's.
But what do you mean, Chris? By just because I see people are. What do you mean by get out of jail free card? Obviously, you're not implying that they did anything wrong.
No, not at all.
They get a pass on any emotions they have because everything is valid.
That's how they're expressing, right? As you know more than anybody, Doc.
course.
That's how they're expressing their anger
That's right.
and their shock and all of those things. So it's just it's an emotional response. I mean, Dad doesn't even go in the courtroom, yet you have Ethan's parents sitting in there who went with the deal. Okay. And then you have Maddie's family with their own attorney coming out and saying, we buy the deal. Well, what about Xana's mom who's sitting in jail? What are her feelings? We haven't even heard from her feelings. Okay. I want to know that personally, because I'm sure she's torn up now. To think about that piece of the puzzle, she may be in the same facility as Brian Kohberger, the guy who murdered her daughter. That's horrible to think about. Okay. And to know it now that he said, hey, I did it. So I agree. I don't think there was a lot of consideration, and I don't think, and that's the big picture here, the consideration. All of this could have been resolved by getting everybody to Boise on Monday and saying, okay, the defense has called us. Thank you for coming down here. Sometime the state in California, anywhere where I work, we would even pay for it. Hey, I know it's 11th hour, 59th minute. We have correspondence from the defense. They want to take a deal. We want to talk to you. What's your availability? I can't make it. Okay, no problem. We'll get you a flight. Be here tomorrow noon or whatever the deal is going to be. And we fly them in. We put them in hotels. We have victim witness. They manage them and they get them to the meeting. Everybody's in the room and you say, here's the situation. And you talk to the families in this conference room,
right,
about this whole problem. Okay. And everybody goes, well, two people say, well, we don't agree. And other two people go, well, we do. Okay. And then the state weighs that. And in this case, they did. And they stepped back and said, okay, well, how much is it going to cost? And that's where they leaned. We got a 50-50 split here on the families. So basically, I'm going to sound hard here, but I'm not trying to, but it's reality. Okay, we're going with the money. Let's roll. Yep. And that's what they did. And Brian Kohberger gets to sit there like, who he is and not tell anybody what he did until he's ready. And now the second part of this problem, or the third part now, the first was the murder, the second was the arrest, and now the trial, and now this is actually the fourth. The fourth act here is now Brian's going to determine who the actors are and what the narrative is, what the script is from here. And guys like Dr. Brucato are going to go in and figure him out.
Well, and the dog is just being a pain in the butt. I got to take them out soon. The fact that it is a money thing, but he was going to sit no matter what, even if he was convicted, put on death row. He was going to sit there for a while, and he would have appealed, and he would ask the governor for a stay, and over, and that's rough on families as well. None of that's going to happen now, and in a way, I do think that that's a blessing, but I understand their frustration. I've been dealing with parole boards for years, since I was a little boy. It sucks. It's horrible. It's scary. It's unnerving. I would love to never have to deal with that again. And like I said, in a way, it is sort of a blessing, but they pulled the rug out from them. They didn't communicate with them well. It was very insensitive. So I completely understand their anger. And I want to ask Dr. Gary this question right here. I'm really interested in your thoughts because I'm interested in this too. You think Kohberger was responsible for the skinned dog?
How do I answer this? I think there isn't clear evidence that he had anything to do with it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, because we know that people who are beginning to experiment with cutting things up and so forth. And I do think Kohberger is an experimenter. Think, for example, of the cutting of the hamstrings of Ethan when he should have been leaving the house.
So
right, he's an experimenter. He leaves his signature, kind of thing. And that is the kind of person, despite the love of animals glimpsed in the veganism and other things. I mean, the reality is that you can imagine him easily having experimented. At the same time, I mean, we don't have any clear evidence of that. It's just one of those things where I wouldn't be shocked. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't be either. I mean, like you said, there is no evidence of it, but I mean, that's typical behavior for somebody who's escalating into.
Yeah, that's the right word. Exactly the right word.
Yeah, I've been hanging out with you, Dr. Gary. I've read your book.
But I think it's that's exactly the word we would use in the criminology world is that you look at the escalation, and with Kohberger, if you lay out all the escalation, you have to ask yourself, what is happening at every junction at which there is escalation? And then you'll know what triggers him. Right? Every time you see a little bump in activity, what was going on?
Oh, look, listen to this. Someone FOIA'd the dog records, and that case has been
all right, there you are.
Adjudicated.
Sir, excuse me.
It was a kid?
It was a minor.
All right. Let's just say, I hope they watch that kid.
Well, I don't know about that because I FOIA'd the records and they refused to release them.
Really?
Yep. So, I mean, we're still waiting for the records. I mean, yeah, so I don't know how accurate, whoever said they did that.
Yeah.
Because if it was a juvenile, they wouldn't have even known that.
That's what you call, we got nothing for you.
Yeah, it's a nothing burger. A pro nothing burger.
We got nothing for you.
Yeah.
I have heard that. I have heard what Beautiful Messy says here, but I haven't seen that. I haven't seen a redacted thing about it. But like I said, there'll never be nothing for you. I mean, just ridiculous, Dr. Gary. Whatever. Just
nothing for you.
All right, let's see if we can get Lisa here.
What happened to the other caller? Did she drop off?
No, she's still.
Thank you for calling in.
All right, Lisa from Calgary. Are you there?
Finally get Lisa?
I don't know.
Boy,
we're gonna try.
Where is she calling from?
Calgary.
Which Calgary?
The Flames. They're in Fleury.
Nothing for you. I'm trying. I promise you, I'm trying here. Hold on, try this. Are you there?
Kelsey finds the FOIA hilarious.
That was funny. It was ridiculous, but it was a ridiculous thing to say.
She said it's almost as funny as the alligator joke.
It was pretty good. You there, Lisa?
Hello, are you there?
Oh, whoa.
Oh.
Holy crap. What'd you do? Throw her a can with a string?
I'm trying, yeah. Hi, Lisa.
Hello. I'm here.
Hey, can you turn your TV or whatever you're listening to us on down in the background?
Chris.
We don't want to hear.
You're right, Dandelion. I don't get it.
Hello.
We don't want to hear.
I am.
Hi.
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 Where are you calling us from?
Calgary, I told you.
No, but where are you exactly? What is in the background? It sounds like
hi guys. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah,
It
this
sounds
is a
like you're
hard
calling
reception.
from
I can hardly hear you, handsome gentleman.
oh,
Can you hear me?
yes, we hear you. I'm gonna why don't we let you
Hello?
state your question? Why don't we let you state your question, and then
Yeah.
you can head off, and we'll answer the question. See, she doesn't hear us at all, Chris.
Here I am.
Oh, you hear us? There we go.
Yes, now I hear you.
Beautiful.
I don't know what.
Awesome.
Move
Hello.
closer
Oh my
to the
gosh,
Ouija
I'm
board.
finally in. Oh, that was hello?
This is the weirdest call ever. It's like we're talking to you on a Ouija board.
It's not the weird. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not
we've had weirder ones.
close
So
to
wait a
the
minute. Why
weird.
don't you just tell us what the question is, and we'll.
This is a normal call, Dr. Gary. What are you talking about? This is a great call, actually.
Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
I think it's fantastic. I just wish I knew what the question.
No, you don't get to jump on it now.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank all three of you gentlemen for your insight and compassion and humor. You're just a fantastic group of classy dudes, that's for sure. This cheeky buggers too. My question to Dr. Oh, I lost you now.
No, we can still hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay. So my question is, Dr. Gary, you said that earlier, you as a psychopath, he has no fear. Do you think?
Well, I didn't say that he's a psychopath. I said it's possible that he is. I haven't examined him, so I don't know.
Fair enough. Yeah, I hear that and I recognize that. So hypothetically, would he be afraid going in to meet Mr. 111 and his new girlfriends?
I think there's a very big difference between being afraid and being stupid. I mean, it's one thing to say, look, I'm not scared, to get into the boxing ring with, Mike Tyson. But it'd be another thing for me to think it was a good idea to do it. You know what I'm saying? Unless I want my face to look like meatloaf, I'm probably not getting in there. So I think that it's all a matter of like gauging whether it's a stupid idea. The difference. And so I think his judgment is weird.
Yeah.
Impaired judgment may be the phrase of the hour with this story,
Thank you. And just one more thing, if we can just, send some prayers out to those poor people in Texas right now with the floods.
We were going to close it out with that. It's what's happening there is absolutely unbelievable and terrifying and tragic. And thank you.
What exactly is going on?
Flash floods, and people are going missing, and dying.
22 dead from the flash floods, and I think there's 25 young girls still missing.
It's absolutely
the environment is is angry. And but so let me ask you something. Are any of them children that are missing or dead?
Children.
Yeah.
God.
It was a young girls' camp.
It was a young girls' camp. That's right. A terrible thing to happen. Lisa, thank you so much. I'm glad that we got you on, and I know that you were the first one patient. I wasn't going to. Dr. Gary, I wasn't. Chris was ambivalent, but we made it happen.
Well, the first shall be last, but the last shall be right. Well, you were literally right. The first shall be last. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And,
one day we'll buy you a ceramic cup, Dr. Gary.
Thank you. Thank you for saying
that.
Microphone?
How about a microphone?
Get him a Flames cup.
So I can send you one.
I actually have one with Sherlock Holmes on it, but I worry about dropping it because it means a lot to me. So I put it on the shelf and I don't actually use it.
Are you a Thurin Fleury fan from back in the day?
When I was much younger, Chris, I was an usherette at the Saddle Dome, and I got to meet all of those chaps. And yes, Theron was quite something.
That a girl. Did you meet the great one?
Well,
whenever they played the Flames.
Calgary versus Edmonton, there's a bit of a rivalry. So
Yeah, that's why I asked. That's why I asked.
yeah.
And there's a big,
Meet the great.
like a big country bar, Cowboy something up there. What's the name of that place? You know what I'm talking
Cowboys
about?
and the Ranchman's is the biggest one.
There you go. And it's a casino too, right? It's a combo.
And it's the Stampede this 14 days,
Yeah.
these 10 days. Yeah, the
Awesome.
big Calgary Stampede.
You see, we're impressing these two other pretzel boys sitting over here on the
I don't like
on
hockey.
the stream here. So thank you, young lady, for calling in. We appreciate it.
Oh, you were talking about hockey.
Oh,
Yeah,
did you just wake up? What time did the bus show up?
Well, Chris knows a lot about that subject. I just couldn't understand what the heck he was talking about. When you said the great one, I kept thinking, what does Jackie Gleason have to do with this? Seriously, I had no idea what you were talking about for the entire. I had no idea.
So
Now-
I don't talk about it very much anymore, as you know, Gary. But
Right.
my son
Right.
my son who passed away, was ranked number 3 in the U.S.
Yeah.
For the North American Hockey League.
Oh, he was
And
going
That's amazing.
he was a
Isn't he from
defenseman.
Ontario?
Yeah, with very soft hands. And long story short, he played for Montreal MTHL, Montreal
Yeah.
Hockey League, and he had a
Really?
yeah. He
didn't know
played
that.
Canadian Junior A at 16, and he lived up in Canada. He had a manager who managed a variety of folks, but his name was Thane Campbell. I don't know if you've ever heard that name, but Thane represented my son, and my son got hit in the head with a stick and broke his jaw.
Oh,
And they wired it shut, and they dropped him down to the NAHL, the North American Hockey League, to play in Texas, and he played with a team called Texas Tornadoes. Long story short, he was on the path to be drafted into the NHL, and the guy that represented him also represented Eric Lindros.
oh wow.
And so, unfortunately, he passed away in an accident, and I haven't been the same ever since. But hockey has been my love ever since I was a kid, and my boys all picked it up. So, except for my youngest now, Dylan, for some reason, he's just not into it.
It's because he's a very, very smart kid.
He's a good kid. Yeah, we're
Well,
lucky.
Chris, you have you and
There you
Karen
go.
have hold him close, and I'm sure he's with you both always. And
He is. And thank you for your consideration, your kindness and your thoughtfulness. It's very nice of you.
Yeah.
So, but go Canucks, right?
yes,
Go Canucks. Well,
So, I will. I'll look forward to tomorrow night.
All right.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
If I were going to enjoy watching a sport, I think I'd enjoy hockey.
Yeah, right.
I like the aggression of it. It's interesting to me.
Great.
You don't think that would interest me? It would.
Yeah, it does.
I absolutely 100% do not believe that there's a sport out there other than maybe I don't know.
Ball.
Yeah, maybe, but other than that, I just I don't
Not
think
true. I just play that up for fun. I enjoy it. First of all, I happen to have a nephew who is heavily involved in those things, and he gets me into it. So
I know, but have you ever worn a helmet of any kind?
No. Please. Except to protect, I don't know. No. But I think it's interesting, and my nephew is an extremely gifted athlete. I think he's going to wind up a star soccer player. So I've gotten very interested in he makes it work. He really, I tell you, when you see a young person really know how to play a sport, it is fascinating.
I agree with that.
I mean, watching him is like mind blowing.
I loved watching my kids play sports. It was one of I loved it even more than myself playing. I enjoyed it much more. But you never ridden a bike with a helmet?
No, I always thought it was nerdy.
Oh, okay. Dr. Gary calling something nerdy.
I like being nerdy, okay?
I know, but how could you?
If I could, I'd ride a unicycle. I think nerdy is fun.
I know,
But
but
in all seriousness, I couldn't possibly. It would mess my. No, I don't like the whole taking the helmet off and having that crazy Einstein hair. No way. I'd rather have a head injury. But I think other people should wear helmets. Yes.
I'd rather have a head injury.
I don't like it.
I think you already have one.
No, in all, yeah, I probably do. But and you too.
No question.
You two have my head injuries. but seriously, it was. I think that I was really happy that it wound up that the last call, the person who was supposed to be first wound up the last call, because in talking about this sensitive issue of Chris's son and everything, it sort of gets right back to the heart of the matter that this is a story about 4 families losing children for absolutely no reason.
None.
Except that some jerk felt like it. And not only, it's not that they died peacefully. They died horrendously.
Yes.
Because some jerk felt like it. And then all the protective instincts that you have where you don't want a paper cut on your baby take over, and you say, you went in and you did what to my daughter? You know what I'm saying? Remember Jody Plauché?
No.
The guy that, yeah, we interviewed him. Chris and I interviewed him. A friend of mine that very
yeah.
well known. Why Gary? Why? His father. Remember what happened?
Yes.
The guy, the karate coach was praying. I'm going to say this for the sake of the audience. Praying on this kid, a sex offender who I think had his record expunged, and then was like working with a whole bunch of kids as a karate guy. Can you imagine? In a new state. And he tells this kid, your parents are getting separated. I'll be there for you, blah, blah, blah. And then he starts doing things to break down, barriers. And the next thing, how cute. And the next thing you know, he's assaulting him, takes him off to a hotel room. Remember the whole story?
Yes.
And then when they caught this guy and they extradited him home, Plauché's father stood by the payphones near where this guy was getting off the plane, and blew his brains out on national television. And the judge understood. They understood. It was like a passion thing. Now listen, I understand the idea of saying, I can't accept that this guy is going to walk without a hair being harmed on his head. I understand. It's a protective instinct. Right? Don't you feel that way, Chris?
100%. I can't blame them. I mean, and that's why, a lot of people are mad that they've said and done, and okay, well, that's just one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle, like you're just talking about there, Gary, it will never go away. It will never go.
No closure. And like that Naslin's mother, she said, and I think she meant it literally when she said that all that ever goes through her mind is, what did she feel? What did she suffer? How long did she suffer? Whatever. I think she probably felt that all the time. I think it probably hastened her death.
Yeah.
And you notice she had the Virgin Mary in front of this picture of her daughter, and I always thought to myself, that's because the Virgin Mary stood at the foot of the cross and watched her son die, tortured to death. And there was an identification with that, And, one of the things I wrote in the manuscript for the book I'm doing is that one time I went to a museum and I saw a painting that amazed me. I never saw anything like it. It was the only painting I ever saw that depicted Adam and Eve's reaction to finding out that Abel was murdered. And I thought to myself, that's right at the heart of what I care about in a case, right? The faces of Adam and Eve at the news that Abel was murdered. Well, that's the idea, right? I mean, that's what the heart has to be of our work. I'm sorry. I don't mean that as lip service. I couldn't care less about Kohberger. I also think, and Dr. Ramsland said this on News Nation, Brian Enton, is that she also feels that there's tragedy in the idea that this guy was somebody who was moving in the direction of a crime-fighting career. And there's also that tragedy, the sort of pathetic waste of the way he was going, the tragedy of that his parents found out their son is a pervert and a murderer. There's tragedy all around. And in the foundation, we put our emphasis on the ripple effect of victims, of what happens to victims. The idea, it's like throwing a pebble in the water and just watching the ripple effects, you know? And you know, Josh, in your own life, have you seen the ripple effects of your father's actions?
It's funny that that's exactly the terminology that we use. It's like you take a mill pond and you take this you know, a pebble of any kind and you toss it in the middle, and obviously the middle is very disturbed, but if you look, even the very outer bands, and that's kind of where I am, you know, in my journey, that, you know, of the tragedy that we have, the outer bands of it. I still have terrible days.
That's
you know,
right.
my grandma still has terrible days. My sister, my aunts, and it becomes a little more spaced out, but it still happens, you know. So yeah, the ripple effect is a real thing, and these parents that are in this right now, right now it's the epicenter, you know. It's like right at and they're angry and they're confused, and
Can I?
And they want to protect their child, even
Can
though
I share something?
Yeah,
please.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah.
So that's my son. And when he was a little boy, and that's my son today. That's the point, in my opinion.
That's right.
That's the point. All of that, dreams, futures, everything. Look at the vibrance of this little guy. He was full of life. And this is the ending. This is what these parents are experiencing. And I don't mean to say, hey, look at me, because that's not my intention of showing this picture. My intention of showing this picture is it will never go away.
And by showing this picture, Chris, his memory lives on, and more people know about your son, Ryan, and that Ryan was a real person before even, you know, I didn't, you know, I've, you know, talked to Dylan and I've heard about your other children. And I know it hurts, and I appreciate you sharing that with us, because that's not an easy thing. And trust me, we share a lot of stuff on here about our lives, and which makes us vulnerable sometimes, but it's something you deal with every day. You're still dealing with the ripple effects. I remember last year was I mean, it's always tough for you, but I know last year was an extremely tough year for you. Extremely. You know, these sort of benchmarks that we get to, like I said, 37 years ago, last week, my mother was murdered. 37 years. That seems like a really long time. And it is. But I was just a little boy, you know. I didn't start dealing with this stuff. I mean, from an adult perspective till much later in life, probably 30. is when I really started to embrace and dig in and try to figure out what sense of it I could make, you know, because there was a lot of the story I didn't know. And it was very painful, but it was, to me, necessary. It was part of my journey. It's been part of it. I asked my sister to sort of come along with it, and she didn't want to.
But Josh, you don't think you two, every time you come on the air like this, and in Chris's case also the work he does, every time you do that, don't you think you're throwing a new pebble in a new pond with a new ripple effect? And
hopefully a positive one.
Right. And in doing that, you can kind of create a greater ripple effect. See, the thing is, I don't know personally how either of you have dealt with any of these things beyond faith. If I didn't have my faith, I would never get through anything. I'm always very, you know, for those who in the audience happen to identify this way, they'll know what I'm talking about, is I've always loved, one of my favorite lines in scripture is when Christ is at the Last Supper in John, and he says, in this life, you'll have many sorrows and trials, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. And he says that before he dies. And by the way, the only time the Lord ever sang in his entire life was the night he died. And it's important to remember that he's overcome the world. That right now, life, it's like if you took a tapestry and you flipped it over and you saw all those crazy threads that don't make any sense going in every direction, the way that will happen when you make a tapestry. And I think when we get to the other side, it'll be like flipping the tapestry and going, oh yeah, there's a picture. It makes a drawing, makes sense. I don't think it makes any sense here. But I really think that one day, looking at it from the other side, we'll understand that what really happened was these people went to the source of life itself. It can't be taken from them, right? And I really believe that they see all of this and hear all of this, and we're being their hands and their. I wrote to one of the parents of one of the victims in Idaho on the day of the, you know, on the Kohberger hearing. And I said that when this is all over, you'll realize that you have to be your daughter's hands and heart and voice forever. And that's how you keep them alive, you know. But there's nothing else to say except to undo it. You have to undo the pain by making meaning out of it. And I think if I were in this situation, what I would do is I would say, what is the work that I can carry on? Because they're not here to do it. What would they have done? You know what I mean? And I know that when I said that to the parents of one of the victims on Chris's show, that it was very touching to them, very poignant to hear, because I have said that to many people that have experienced the loss of children. And I think both of you do that. You take a terrible thing and you turn it into something that's helping thousands, and you have no idea how. That's the most amazing thing. I have had students that I used to teach see me out in the world and go, oh, you know, you're the reason I did such and such. It was a comment you made that made me want to do something. Or I've had patients say to me, I was thinking of committing suicide, and our conversation saved my life, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the good Lord is so funny how things operate, because sometimes those moments happen when I'm giving up belief that there's a point in doing what I'm doing. And right on cue, somebody pops up and says, you know, if you didn't have that conversation with me, you know what I'm saying? And I guess what I'm talking about is the ripple effect of goodness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sounds corny, but it's not. It's not. And I really think I hope that in the audience people say, you know what, today I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something kind, because maybe that person will then do something kind, and that next person will do something kind. You know what I mean? You got to let the buck stop with you. And it sounds cheesy, but
it's not, and it doesn't.
And it saves people's lives. and keeps them from doing terrible things. Terrible things. You know how sad it is for me to think that there might have been a different outcome in this story if somebody had come over to Kohberger and said, let's eat lunch. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who would have sat there and let him pontificate and been his buddy. You know what I mean? That's what happens when people get that. It's not a victim blaming statement. I don't mean it that way.
Well,
I just mean that on that road of life,
somebody could
make a big difference if someone
intervened, somebody may be kind, somebody tried to be his friend, something. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Someone cares about you.
Yeah. Dr.
You know
Gary,
what it means to not be invisible to someone?
it's one of the worst feelings ever.
One of the saddest things I ever saw in my life was a kid I knew that developed a psychotic delusion. I mean, they were not a patient, just somebody I heard about in the neighborhood that developed a psychotic delusion that they were invisible because no one ever seemed to notice them. That's pretty sad. Like thinking of a power of invisibility. It's pretty bad.
Chris,
Yeah.
let me ask this question and then we'll get going here. These dogs are gonna rip my legs off here in a second. Do you think that Ann Taylor planned this all along to get the DP off the table? And I'll just tell you that I think that her goal eventually was that she probably wanted a plea deal. Obviously the defense ended up asking for it, but I think they strung it out as long as they could. What do you think, Chris?
I think that if that was her goal, which that's what she should have done because she's a defense attorney, her job was to save the life of Brian Kohberger.
Exactly.
That was her job.
Right.
And she did it.
She did it.
Now, if the DA filed death penalty as a way to get her to do that, that's unethical. And it goes against everything the system should stand for. Remember, Lady Justice has a sword, a blindfold, and scales. If you go into a case and all you do is swing the sword, then you're not talking about the scales or the blindfold. And it leaves families like Steve and Christy in shambles because there's no balance there. And when you have a system that is by nature, problematic, they fight each other, defense and prosecution. Okay. It's adversarial. That's the nature of our system in the United States, in the world, from the world. If you have that system and one side is going to try to get this guy, do everything that they can off the pipeline here, i.e. save his life, and you don't include the family into that, then you have now a family who is going, what about us? And to me, that's the sad part of this whole thing. Brian Kohberger is going to get what Brian Kohberger is going to get. That's going to happen. And being, a guy who's actually put people on death row. Okay. I just disconnect, saying, well, these are the consequences. The jury spoke. That's what they said is going to happen to you. Have a good day. But in this case, they didn't even get that piece of the puzzle, and that's where all the frustration comes from. And you can't blame them for that. And we're in such a a time where people are going to write books, they're going to write they're doing movies. And by the way, a lot of this was already pre-production that was in the can, as they call it, right, Gary? It was already in the can. And now it's going to be coming out, and it may differ than what Brian Kohberger is actually going to say. That's a dangerous place to be in for production and a producer, because this is not a play. Okay. That stuff works for when a trial is about ready to happen and go through the trial. That's not a problem. But in real life, when somebody says, yeah, I did it, and we try to create a narrative as to understanding why, we won't understand why until somebody, i.e. him, Brian Kohberger, says, and this is the reason why. You'd be surprised how many murderers I've talked to, and I thought it was the way I saw it. And I'd sit in the room with them, and they'd look you right in the eye and go, you got it wrong. What do you mean? Well, you said this, this, and this, but this is what I really was thinking, and this is what I was really doing. So you got it wrong. And you know what? The best place to be in that kind of situation is the student. Teach me. Help me understand why. And that's why you always ask the question, why? Why did he do this? Why did she do this? Why did Ann Taylor do this? Why did Brian Kohberger do this? Why did he stand up on Wednesday and said, yeah, yes, yes? Why did he choose one word? Yes. I mean, we know he's robotic. We know he's, not wrapped real tight. That's the easy part. But what's going on in his head is where guys like Gary come in and write books about it. And, we won't know. We won't know. And neither will the family. And that's the frustrating part here that they're expressing. And they have every right to express that. Every single right. I think they felt cheated, and I can't disagree.
Really quick here, and I gotta get off because this dog is insane. He's growling at me like violently. I wanted to show you this. So that picture of the Aryan Brotherhood guy that we saw earlier.
Oh Lord.
Doris said that because he was an escapee, it's a keyhole on his chin because he's escaped prison.
Oh.
Because he what?
He escaped prison, so he got a keyhole tattoo right here.
Well, doesn't that just make the point, right?
Yeah.
We were trying to ask, what is that? We don't know. And look what just happened.
Doris came through in a major way.
Stick the key in. Maybe we should get one for Brian. We should order him one. Have a tattoo artist go in.
I love that the person who made this point has a name that contains the word door. That cracks me up. Doris. Thank you, Doris, for figuring that about the keyhole. I'll never forget that. That's very interesting.
That was interesting.
It's like a little interesting play on words, right?
It makes it
adorable. Yes, but those things fascinate me. Those little coincidences. But anyway, Doris, I don't know how you know that. I hope that you don't know this person or have some connection to this person. If so, we think he's a charming and fascinating and delightful individual. We'd love to have
a great guy.
We'll put out the tea service.
Oh man, you guys, it's been
personally wax his head.
3.5 hours. You guys are awesome. You guys have a great show tomorrow. Please, if you have not, head over to the interview room. Check it out. Show tomorrow. What do you say, Chris?
Share the picture.
That picture again with the that picture. What the heck is this? Is Chris's head pasted?
If you're ever in Cowboy Stadium, come see me.
What am I looking at?
Slow Namath.
Slow name it.
Slow Namath. Get
Yeah,
outta
if
here.
you're ever
Even I
on the Cowboys, just come visit me in the locker room, would you? Anybody, feel free. All right, Josh, we love you.
Is your head pasted on somebody else?
No, man, that's when he played for the Cowboys. Don't you?
You know what, Gary? If I tell you, I'm going to have to eliminate a lot of things, and I'm not at liberty to give it up. So, but yeah, there I am, number 60. At
What was your 40? How fast of a 40?
Yeah, it was a Schlitz malt liquor. My 40. Get my 40.
Oh, that's too good, man.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for letting us be part of your show tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow. Aloha.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you, guys.
Josh. Thanks,
All right.
Doc.
Of course, as always.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gary. Appreciate it.
That was funny.
It was extremely funny. He's a funny guy.
I'm still laughing at Doris. Doris telling us the fact about the lock. So I mean, I know I have a dorky sense of humor. I could even tell you that there's a word for that. That's called a kangaroo word. A kangaroo word or a Joey word. It's where there is a word inside of a bigger word that semantically is related to it, and it's not on purpose. And that cracks me up. I find things like that fascinating.
Like a pun.
It's not a pun. It's a pun is like the time on Halloween I saw the person who put a balloon under their shirt to give themselves a big belly and was wearing a hat that put two quotation marks, like made quotation marks next to their head. And I said, what the heck are you supposed to be? And he said, a pregnant pause. See, I think things like that, that's a pun. But wordplay, is funny. But this is just a sort of little accident of language that cracks me up.
But doesn't the keyhole thing makes tons of sense? It's an escape. I mean, it's a dumb thing to do.
Pay attention to the fun with language. True. Yes, of course. You think Bundy would have had two keyholes? Speaking of which, if he really is imitating Bundy, wouldn't it be interesting to see if Kohberger tries to escape?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This was a reference from very early on in the show. He said that Brian Kohberger's ears were so big that he would get Radio Free Europe.
Nobody caught that. There wasn't one laugh.
It was good. It was a good joke.
It's funny. Come on.
Of course, I love it. He looks. It's like one of those satellites in the movie Contact. Those are that's what his ears look like. They're huge.
Right. All right. Anyway, all right. Listen. Go tend to the dogs.
All right. We'll talk soon. Have a great show tomorrow, and we appreciate honestly all your knowledge on this. I mean, it really is fascinating for us that are not, experts, and you are one of the top experts in the country, if not the world, and we appreciate your time. Honestly.
Well, but you can see that I've gotten to the point where it's like I'm so sick of talking about.
Oh, we're done. I mean,
until there is no more.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
Is it a wrap?
Well, for me,
we'll be talking about him for a few weeks, especially when the book comes out, the Patterson books, and reignites, the reigniting of all these different interpretations. You'll see.
Well, I'm sure we'll talk about the sentencing and the statements, the impact statements. But then after that,
that is important. And then to see, when life feels sort of like that last scene in a movie where they go 20 years later, like I kind of want to see what the families do and everybody does like with this. And once it's all over.
And if Steve is watching this, Steve Gonzalez,
he's a good man.
He is a good man. I hope that he will reconsider. Obviously it's up to him what he wants to do, but I know that his words are powerful, and that it should be attached to this hearing or this sentencing. It should go in the file with it forever, and so that's just how I feel. And and hopefully he at least reconsiders, but obviously it's up to him what he'd like to do. But Dr. Gary, thank you, and we will talk soon. All right, bye-bye. All right, that was a great show. I had a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for all the support in the chat, the super stickers, the likes, the questions, the call-ins. It was an epic show. What are you going to do about it, right? It's awesome. I appreciate you guys being here, and we will see you next time.